That's it. We're live. What's up, you beautiful people?
Less than less than 5 minutes late. So listen, everyone should be happy. This was like as on time as it gets for us.
Yeah, that's it. This feels good. I feel pumped. I feel jazzed. Hope you all had a Merry Christmas or Happy Kwanzaa or the Hanukkah or whatever you celebrate. Thanks so much for being here with us, though, for the holidays. We're continuing our holiday hangouts. This is pro wrestling. This is Gary Horde, and I'm here as always with it's Will. Hey, Will.
Hello, everyone, and Merry after Christmas and early Happy New Year's or something. I don't know. Who knows? That fell apart.
And, of course, the doctor. Keeping them straight on Twitter every day, all day. This is Dr. Stinson. Hey, Rob.
Man, I just want to be at peace with people, man. I ain't trying to attack nobody, but I do want to commend Will for an excellent drum. That was you on drums at the opening of the show?
Oh, yeah, always, man. I do that live every time. I do all the instruments.
Dope, boy.
He recorded that. He recorded that intro music is actually all Will. He's the Dave Grohl of the podcast. So
well, and it's all my mouth. It's all a cappella, so it's actually not even any instruments.
He's that one dude from Police Academy of the podcast.
Yeah. So I try to add what I can.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, thank you, everybody, for jumping in on here. I see Kevin Ostering in the chat. Front row, Dave Scooby, Clint Miller, Rock says 79, Gamer Guy, Dr. Red, don't trust him, but he's there telling you to trust him. Woodland Goblin's back. Jason Pease is back. Thank you guys so much for being here. Did I say WWE Front Row? Because I should have, because we love that guy. And anyway, hello, Master Manscapers. I hope you all got your Manscaped on for the holidays. Or at least bought Manscaped for your loved ones. And just a reminder that you can use promo code NWAPOD to get 20% off and free shipping. Still at manscaped.com. All right. Well, there's a lot to talk about. It's been a big week, a sad week. Lots of stuff going on. We got a lot of RIPs to do, a lot of news to cover. We just want to hang out with you guys. I mean, that's mainly why we're here, just to talk about the week in wrestling. What you've loved, what you haven't, all of that stuff. So I don't know. Did you guys get everything you wanted for Christmas? I guess just to warm up everything. Did everything go well?
Yeah, absolutely. It was great, man. Great time with the fam. Surprisingly, not as stressful as I thought it was going to be. You know, not to sound like a pessimist, but when you got a 3-year-old and multiple toddlers in your extended family, you kind of expect chaos, but it was actually pretty chill and had a great time. And just, you know, it hits different in 2020 for some reason, that family time with close relatives and, smaller groups and things like that. It just, you know, they're few and far between this year. So when you get a chance to hang out, it's just really a blessing. So that's what it was for me, man. That time was just really good for my soul.
Yeah, and for us, Christmas is about kids, and it was fun to hang out with the kids and see their eyes of wonder and all that kind of stuff. So we had a really good time. Was also able to launch the my new project, which I call WeScaped, which is sort of the Uber of Manscaped, where you can actually rent my Manscaped. I'll send it to you. And Woodland Goblin actually was my first customer. He was able to Manscape today. And it's back on the way in the packaging. And so WeScaped 2.0, sign up now.
Yeah, and just to be clear, so that everybody doesn't think this is gross, Rob is COVID-free. Everybody has to take a COVID test first. So nobody has COVID that is shaving their pubes. So it's not gross. Anyway.
All right.
Nailed it. I've been writing that joke all day, man.
You've been working on that for a week now, haven't you?
Glad you got it in. This show is rated PG-13. And welcome, Arvid. Welcome, Neil. All the people joining us on Facebook. That's so cool. Good to see you guys. We are grateful for every single one of you. And I guess, unless you guys have something else, we can go ahead and take these people into the loop, right? Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So here's the thing. The real question has to be here: do we start somber or do we start happy-go-lucky? Like, what do we do here? Because I didn't about this. We didn't talk about it beforehand. There's a lot of.
I feel like it would be disingenuous if we didn't start with what's on everyone's mind and the losses that we experienced this week that obviously have been devastating. We're all still processing it. So, go ahead and I would say jump in there and let's give our tributes and talk through some of that stuff together.
All right. Well, get your towels ready and get your drinks ready to pour one out for the people we lost this week in professional wrestling. And I mean that with all due respect. Of course, the one that's probably hitting the hardest right now, the most sore one, the freshest on everyone's mind is the loss of Jon Huber. I'll just read through this real quick. This is according per the Observer. Jonathan Huber, known as Brodie Lee in AEW and Luke Harper in WWE, has passed away at the age of 41. Huber's wife, Amanda, wrote an Instagram post that he had died from a non-COVID-19 related lung issue. I am not going to read that post because I don't know that I could keep it straight the whole time. But AEW did post the following statement. The All Elite Wrestling family is heartbroken in an industry filled with good people. Jon Huber was an exceptionally respected and beloved in every way, a fierce and captivating talent, a thoughtful mentor, and a very kind soul that starkly contradicted his persona as Mr. Brodie Lee. John's love for his wife, Amanda, and children, Brodie and Nolan, was evident to all of us who were fortunate to spend time with him, and we send our love and support to his beautiful family today. And as always, John's popularity among his peers and influence on the wrestling world was worldwide and transcended AEW, so his loss will be felt by many for a long time. We were privileged at AEW to call Jon Huber a brother, a friend, and one of our own. Also, I guess worth mentioning here too is his situation was a lung issue. They haven't specified anything particular that was, except that it was non-COVID-19 related. This apparently was known by the people in AEW, and we don't know how much everybody knew or whatever. But at the most recent AEW Dynamite tapings that were held 2 weeks ago, there was a segment at the end of the tapings where Kenny Omega unofficially lost the AEW World Title to Huber's son. Was it Huber's son or this says Huber's son? I was thinking It was actually Brodie Lee, but I guess it was Huber's son. And Brodie was announced as the new champion by AEW announcer Justin Roberts. So they did something for his kid there, like as a Christmas gift. So that was really sweet of them. But just to add a little bit onto this, he started in 2003. He joined WWE in 2012. Obviously, he regularly teamed with Bray Wyatt and Eric Rowan as part of the Wyatt family. He requested his release from WWE in 2019. He got that in December and then showed up under the name Mr. Brodie Lee in AEW on the March 18th edition of Dynamite, revealing himself as the Exalted One. He started a feud with Cody and ended up defeating him for the TNT title on August 22nd. And then Cody returned and faced Lee in what would be Huber's final match, a dog collar match for the TNT title on October 7th on Dynamite. Cody won and regained the title. Huber and his wife have two sons, Brodie and Nolan. He was well regarded by everybody that's spoken about him as a big-time family man and cared a lot about his kids. I won't talk forever, but just to give you an idea of the stature of this guy in the pro wrestling industry, he's a one-time NXT tag team champion with Eric Rowan. He's an Intercontinental champion, former two-time SmackDown tag team champions, once with Bray Wyatt and once with Randy Orton. Once with Rowan and once with Randy Orton. And he won Slammy Award for the Match of the Year in 2014 with Team Cena versus Team Authority. In Wrestling Observer's newsletter, he won the Best Gimmick in 2013 as part of the Wyatt family. He got as high as number 24 on Pro Wrestling Illustrated's top singles stars. he's also, I mean, just related to our old stomping grounds. He's a NWA Empire heavyweight champion, NWA Southern television champion, and of course the aforementioned AEW TNT champion, who'll be known forever. And the legacy of that title is the second person to ever hold that one. So a big legacy he leaves behind, and a very, very sad story. But I'll let you guys talk. Sorry, I've been rambling here.
No, that was a good summary of his accolades and achievements. I mean, this one probably hit me harder than anything in a long time in the wrestling industry. Even legends who have passed. I mean, the guys who are legends and have been retired for a while, it's not completely unexpected. It's still sad, but this one, man, it hit me particularly because I've got two boys, and I'm not too proud or too manly to admit this is probably the first wrestler that I can remember that's died that I legitimately cried when I was watching videos of him with his two boys and things like that. And obviously not because I'm going to miss Brodie Lee as a character. It's because he was obviously a loving father and a great husband, and he put his family first. And, he was committed to his character and his gimmick often. And so you didn't get to see a lot of that as is the case with some of those darker guys and characters. But, now that a lot of that's coming out and it's front and center, you just really get to see a good picture of just how great a guy he was. And not a single, negative word have I ever heard spoken about the guy. The outpouring from every side of pro wrestling. I mean, every single promotion has posted about it, just even if he didn't work there, just because his reputation is so pristine, and he's just a good guy, man. And in a business where, I'm not going to say there's not a lot of good guys, because there's some great guys, but it just seems from what I've seen that he was just head and shoulders above everyone in terms of just being a great guy, being willing to help people, being committed to his family. And man, it's just totally unexpected. I mean, when all this started coming out, I was just like, this can't be, like, you know what I mean? This can't be reality. And then the more I kept reading about it and seeing about it, it's extremely sad, man. And he's going to be missed. And obviously our thoughts and prayers are with his wife and his two boys. And this, it's tough. There's no other way to put it.
Yeah. It's a tough one, man.
Yeah, I don't think Rob. I don't think anybody expected this. Like, it was, he was out, and I recalled, I remember him just like after the dog collar match. I thought, well, he's going to have like a big, major comeback at some point. They're just figuring out what place to insert him next, and after a while, I remember thinking like, wow, he's really not back yet. And I remember hearing on like the Observer radio or something, he's got like a medical thing, and even they didn't know what. They just knew something medical, and I think everybody assumed COVID, and he'll just be back when he's back, and that kind of thing. And then all of a sudden this pops up. So it's a shocker for everybody.
I mean, it's you hear the outpouring of support, and you're like, it's like thinking back to Ric Flair's Hall of Fame induction. And he says something to the effect of, "There's nothing in the world like the respect of your peers," and you can just see with the outpouring of support, what the man, it speaks volume what Kenny did for him. But I'm like Will, it hits me as a dad. He's too young, and it's like they punched the number too soon on this one. When he broke into AEW, we were all on this show just thrilled to death, and we knew he would be a world champion, and he would have been. He would have won the world championship, But he's one of the greats, and Will and I were talking before we went online, just kind of, talking about celebrating them. And that's all we were talking about. What was it? The Barbershop, the movie, The Barbershop, when they shut the barbershop down and Cedric's character in there is going on and on about how it's like, yeah, your dad did this. We didn't make any money. We were giving out free haircuts and this and that. And it always wasn't the best place. But at the end of the day, I was glad I was here. And these wrestlers, they're paid to sometimes be villains and to be mean to us. And we like them for that, but everybody talks about how genuine Brodie was and what he did to for the Dark Order. How cool was that? How cool that we got to experience that with him. And at the end of the day, I was glad he was here. I was glad we had him and that his family was able to share him with us. It's just a shame that it ended too soon, and until Valhalla, tip the bottle to him.
Yeah, that's it, man. It's so crazy. Just 41 years old is too soon for anybody. And Rob, you hit the nail on the head with a couple of points there. I mean, that's the thing I kept trying to think about was through all of this, just trying to express gratitude that we got a chance to witness him perform. And that's what he was trying to do, is entertain and perform for folks and bring some glory to something that he loved. And I think he did that. And then the other point that you made about your peers, I mean, my God, I mean, this guy, it has been nonstop on Twitter, just seeing the outpouring of emotions from people from every wrestling company, anybody that crossed paths with him. There's not one negative thing. I mean, and it's one thing to not be negative, but it's another to see that much positive. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There's just
personal story, specific personal stories too, not just oh, he was a great guy. People sharing pictures and being like, oh, this is when John and I were doing this, hanging out, doing this. And I think we reposted the thread, but on Twitter, but Big E's thread that he posted of just pictures of he and John hanging out and when they were in the WWE together. And just, I mean, it's obvious that, these relationships were beyond surface level. They weren't just work acquaintances. These guys had real friendships with him, knew his family, knew his values, and spent real time with him. And that's just, it's heartbreaking to see. But it really does show you how big of an impact he had behind the scenes, off of screen. I mean, we talk about him on screen because that's what we see, and I remember when he was in WWE as Luke Harper, even when he was just one of the guys in the Wyatt family, not really even having his own identity, I remember thinking dude, this guy is incredible. And I can't wait to see him kind of bust out on his own. And there was a few times in WWE where I thought that was going to happen. And then, just as a result of the oversaturation of talent there, they didn't really give him the spotlight. So I am so thrilled that he had this last year or part of the year in the position that he had in AEW because he deserved it. He obviously, as we're seeing now, it couldn't have happened to a better guy to enter the AEW in the position he did, immediately, be put in that top tier, that main event tier, having world title matches with Jon Moxley, eventually winning the TNT title. And that was the thing, is there's a lot of people that if that happened, people would be like, whoa, that doesn't make sense. That's too fast, right? He just got here and he's already having these matches. Nobody was saying that because everybody knew that he was a top tier talent to begin with. So as soon as he got to AEW, people were like, well, yeah, naturally. I think we even talked about on this show, the program with him and Mox. We were just like, well, yeah, of course. He's incredible. He's on that level. So it's believable that he would show up at AEW and be in the world title picture. It made sense, and so I'm just so glad that he had the last few months in AEW to really get the spotlight that he deserves. And if there's any consolation, which there's not to a situation like this, but I'm just glad that that's what we got in the last few months, as opposed to him not being anywhere,
What's crazy because I mean the I think the overall consensus of him always was that he was just underutilized, like that he always could have been main event. He obviously he has the Bruiser Brodie look. Everybody wanted that out of him. I think they wanted him to be the next Bruiser Brodie. He carried himself appropriately, did everything right. He was amazingly agile for a man of his size. Like just the stuff he did was outstanding, and he was good. So yeah, nobody batted an eye at him coming into AEW. I mean, if anything, they were just super stoked that he was the leader of the Dark Order, and he was the thing that was going to save the Dark Order and did really, because it was kind of floundering at the time as a storyline, I feel. And so, I mean, he did a lot of stuff there in that time in AEW, a lot more than most, and it's good they gave him that spot. You're absolutely right. Right as you said that, it's funny, I was just shooting out the link for the show on Twitter, and a thing from Cody popped up that he had posted just a few hours ago, just showing a clip of Brodie pinning him for the TNT title, and it just having the conversation between the two, just saying like, Brodie asking him like, are you okay that I'm not hooking the leg? And Cody saying, yeah, man, more than okay. And just you can tell it just or the respect he carried for other people, it seems like, is paramount. That you mentioned Big E, the other one that's like really just like knocked me back this last day or so is Kevin Owens. Like Kevin Owens posting a bunch of stuff with Brodie Lee and like their helicopter ride, a video from that, or like the clips he saved from like a fan posting on Twitter that he got tagged in and stuff like that. And it's just he was. He had a lot of friends you'll never – I mean, I don't know. I think – who was it? Mustafa Ali posted a thing where they had a conversation where Mustafa Ali had texted him asking if he was okay, and he just said he was full of life. And so it just – I don't know, man. It's sad. It really is sad. I'm trying to also focus in on some like happy moments of Brodie Lee because I'm not unlike you, Will. I always loved him. I always thought Rowan and Harper should have been monsters, like Road Warrior monsters, and should just be dominating people. And I thought they were finally getting that with the Bludgeon Brothers. And then I think even himself, once he realized that was still not what was going to happen, then it was just like, all right. But yeah, I mean, maybe he made more money in WWE, but he was a guy who was pursuing his passion and chose to take the release and go over to AEW and made a huge impact, and he'll forever be a part of their history. And it's a history I think we all believe will go for a lifetime. And so at least, and so it's nice to know that he'll go down as a champion there and just a legend all around. Did you guys have anything else you wanted to add about Brodie Lee? I mean, he could keep coming up, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, there's countless good things we can say about him. I mean, I'm also glad that he got a run as a singles star, because as great as he was as a tag team wrestler, and you mentioned kind of being the next Road Warriors, that would have been cool. But I think I just always knew, seeing him, that he had the potential to be that top tier world champ, multiple time. And so I like that he had that opportunity in AEW. So, obviously we can keep talking about it and reading the outpouring, but it's just a sad day, man.
Yeah, I'm just thankful we had him, man. He's just a badass, and he a warrior, and I'm thankful we had him.
Yeah, there you go. So we'll raise a glass to Brodie Lee, and if you guys have thoughts or comments you want to bring in, another one that just came into my mind was the time where they had built just to give WWE props enough that they let this happen and people built enough. But I think it involves a lot of the personalities that were involved. But I remember the first time, was it in like a Royal Rumble or somewhere? Maybe it was just on a Raw, and it just happened where the Shield and the Wyatt family faced off for the first time, and people were like chanting like holy shit, like they were just like it was like a big deal that these two factions were like going head to head. And just amazing stuff. So,
and you won't recognize this, Will, but this is one of the two great Dark Lords of our time. This is a gentleman that we know as Darth Vader. The other Darth Vader being Brodie Lee, man, and I'm proud to toast him with this Darth Vader mug, man. My friend
Ryan Romano bringing up a great point too, that he went into his final match as a champion, and
that's a great point.
Yeah, very, very cool. All right. Well, while we're on this train, I mean, there's others we have to mention. We lost another one this past week in Mr. Danny Hodge. He's a legend in the business. I know he's going to be less familiar to most of our viewers / listeners, or just most people who are fans of wrestling in general. I mean, this is a guy who was wrestling around in the 60s, really. And, really he started in the 50s, but this guy was how do I say it? There's a great, if you really want to get the best stories, Jim Ross is on the Observer podcast, and he and Meltzer go in on some Danny Hodge, and it is incredible just hearing the stories. But one of the people that can talk up Danny Hodge is Jim Ross, who says that he told a story about when he came in as a pudgy referee and trying to learn the ropes, and although the owner of the territory wanted him to become a person on commentary and that sort of thing, he set him up as a referee in the business. And he said that, he'd get made fun of a lot. People bullied him, and said that if it had not been for Danny Hodge, he probably wouldn't be in the business, because Danny Hodge and who was feuding around with the Sheik, I think at the time or something, stepped up and took JR under his wing and was like, this is my guy now, and you guys are going to back off of him. And everybody respected Danny Hodge so much that they agreed, and JR never got picked on anymore. And that he still to this day says Danny Hodge was the reason he's in this business, because he would have left. And Danny Hodge, for those who don't know, I mean, he's known for, and I'm sure the doc's got some good stuff here, but he's known for remarkable grip strength, like shatter your bones grip strength. And JR said, and Dave Meltzer both told a story that they had talked to Luthez, who JR said his story was he asked Luthez one time working with him, who are the best shooters, like top 5, who are the best shooters in this business, like the people you wouldn't want to mess with. And he said that Luthez named off like 5 guys. He says Hodge wasn't one of them. And he said, I also didn't mention Danny Hodge. Like, what about Danny Hodge? And he said that Luthez looked at him and was like, oh, well, man, no, you're asking about real people. Danny Hodge ain't a real person. He's like, Danny Hodge is like, there is no comparison to Danny Hodge. Nobody in their right mind would mess with Danny Hodge.
Yeah. You talk about his grip strength. I mean, if you go look at the Wikipedia page, the picture of him is at 80 years old in 2013, crushing an apple with his bare hand in front of the Oklahoma House of Representatives. At 80 years old, the dude still had that grip strength. So, dude, yeah, Fez is right. He's not a regular guy. He was just astronomically superhuman, and he's got a career in wrestling and boxing to back that up. But
he was state champion in wrestling, like amateur wrestling. Like he only didn't win the championship, I think, in his freshman year, because they weren't allowed to wrestle at that time. People changed weight classes to just get out of this division. And JR, and I'll tell this one more thing from that JR podcast, Rob, and I'll let you talk, because I know you know more about this than me, but I think you'd appreciate this one. JR was telling a story about reffing a Jack Briscoe champion NWA World Championship match against Danny Hodge, and said that Danny Hodge was so excited he lost control. He had goosebumps all over, but he grabs Jack Briscoe in the headlock. And he said he even asked Jack about this right before his death, and Jack told the story himself, but said he grabbed Jack Briscoe in the headlock and was holding him there. And he was so excited, he wasn't thinking, and he was squeezing Jack Briscoe's head so hard that Jack Briscoe thought his head was going to pop off. And he said that Jack Briscoe was like, when he could get a breath, was like, Danny, if you will just let this headlock go, I will give you the GD title. Just get me out of here.
Yeah, Danny Hodge. I mean, if you referring to the same Wikipedia page, I'm sure all of us have read it today, just trying to brush up. I've got some old magazines and stuff like that laying around, and my dad has stories of Danny Hodge, like many of your fathers do. When the greatest technician of our time, and that would be Bret Hart, speaks about being honored to be in the presence of Danny Hodge, you know you're a big time deal. And similar to Brodie Lee, you look at the outpouring of support from guys like Nick Aldis and Briscoe and some of those. I mean, it's like, this Danny Hodge is a legend. And I know our friend J. Cal, who loves that NWA World's Junior Heavyweight Championship. I know he's probably got a lot to say on there and probably already has, but he was the perennial greatest National Wrestling Alliance Junior Heavyweight Champion of all time. He held it 8 times. Those are only the officially recognized reigns now. There are probably, dozens of other reigns that aren't recognized. He dominated it for 10 years. The only other person I can think that even comes close to being in a similar conversation was Nelson Royal. And even I think Nelson Royal, if he were to be able to speak on it, would say that Danny Hodge was the man, just like what you said, Gary. He was a legit dude. He an Oklahoma Sooner, a NCAA champion, a national boxing champion. And then, of course, his accolades in the squared circle speak for themselves. Universally respected. And again, as we said about Brodie Lee, there's nothing in the world like the respect of your peers. And, Hodge is universally respected, as he should be. And again, another one who goes to his rest. And until Valhalla, till we see you again, thank you, champion.
JR telling the story that he was at one point even considering if they'd have let him trying to go for gold in boxing and wrestling in the same year. That's just crazy to me. Meltzer was dead set on that. If there were such a thing as MMA during the time of Danny Hodge, he would be undefeated and would be the man in that business. But anyway, so Danny Hodge, yes, crushing apples. Well, not only crushing apples, by the way, crushing pliers. That was his other thing, is like breaking pliers in half like pretzel sticks. Like just I'll shut up after this one, but JR told another story about driving him around, and they went to a hardware store. He said a lot of times before NWA shows, they would have to go and meet the locals and sign autographs and try to convince people to come out. And he said they went into a hardware store and they were signing autographs, and the owner of the hardware store came out and was like, "Are you the boy that breaks the pliers in half?" And he's like, "Well, I might. I don't know. I'm just a little guy." And he said the guy pulls out a drawer full of pliers that he has. He's like, "Well, do these." He's like, and JR is like dead on. Like, I would not say this if I did not see it for myself. He like took like 10 pairs of pliers in a row, just breaking them in half like they didn't even exist. And he was like just snapping them with his hand. And he was like, and then the owner was just like making excuses like, "Well, I got defective pliers. Like there's no way. Like I just like, I'm gonna have to call the manufacturer." He's like, so I made sure on the way out of the store to be like, "Well, the Danny really appreciates your time here, sir. He'd just love to shake your hand and say goodbye," and like blah, blah. So he said Danny knew exactly what he was going for. And he said he watched that shop owner crumple into a pile when Danny Hodge shook his hand. He said, JR was like, "I am not kidding. That man could just shatter bones with his grip. Like if he got you," he said, everybody would tell you, if he got you in like an arm lock or wrist lock of any kind, it was just over. Like that was the end of the match if he got a hold of you.
My favorite part of that story, Gary, was your impersonation of the shop owner. "Well, I've got some pliers here.
Well, here's some pliers for you."
Yeah.
I got a whole drawer of
I
pliers.
say, boy, I got some pliers here.
Well, I do declare I've got a drawer of pliers for you.
What is your chicken? Or you gonna break these pliers? All right. And well, finally, for now, thank God, 2020 has been a bitch. But Kevin Green has passed away. Kevin Green. Wow, Kevin Green. Let's see here. Well, you know what I'll do? I'll just throw it over to the Observer again, because say what you will, they write the best obits. And so they say here, according to Dave, Kevin was one of those 1 in 100. Or this is from Eric Bischoff, actually, on his 83 Weeks show this week. He said Kevin was one of those 1 in 100 people that had the ability to train in the ring and really get a sense of how to perform, how to tell a story, how to pace himself, when to get his heat, when to get his comeback, and listen to the crowd. All those really subtle artistic nuances that differentiate those who do between those who are great. Kevin was one of those 1 in 100 people who would have done it. Kevin, according to Dave Meltzer, Kevin Green's a member of the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame who did some high-profile wrestling matches at WCW. Passed away on December 21st at the age of 58. He was very well liked within the WCW community, and he took his role very seriously and his matches very seriously, showed great fire and timing in the ring. He took 5 matches with the promotion on big shows between 1996 and 1998. He came to his debut there after signing with the Carolina Panthers prior to the 96 season. He worked with Steve Mongo McMichael. McMichael ended up turning on him. There was a whole thing there. He ended up teaming with Flair and Roddy Piper. Here's a little clip from there I had. Look at that. Kevin Green with Flair and Roddy. And they took on the NWO. And he also at one point in his debut actually like helped out Hogan and Savage. There you can see. So Meltzer points out the novelty draw of Green as a wrestler was strong, as his first match, which got a lot of publicity. It got a lot of publicity at a time when WCW was on an upswing, and that was right at the beginning of a period where the company was turning things around. His second match came as things had turned around when the NWA was strong. Basically just he ended up beating the Giant in one of his major matches. He was part of the undercard, I think, on the Page and Karl Malone thing that happened. Anyway, he was also, just for the record, a 3-sport star in Granite City High School in Illinois. Graduated in 80, went to Auburn, was a 5th-round draft choice for the Los Angeles Rams in 85. He played for the Rams, the Steelers, the Panthers, the 49ers, and his career ended in 1999. It was expected he might go into pro wrestling, but he just decided that his body had been through enough by the time he exited the NFL, and he didn't want to do it anymore. But everybody that talks about him says that Kevin Green could have been a great professional wrestler. He was one of those people who just naturally had the instincts.
I remember when Kevin Green signed with the Carolina Panthers, and his segue into pro wrestling had to do with Ric Flair coming out and calling out Kevin Green and telling Kevin Green that he didn't have his permission to be in his hometown of Charlotte, North Carolina. And of course they worked together. Flair, I can't remember who Flair was working with, but I remember it was Steve Mongo McMichael and Kevin Green. And when Steve Mongo turned, that was his entrance into the Horsemen. And he was a controversial Horseman. Flair and Benoit and those guys will tell you that he was a great Horseman, and he was one of Flair's favorite Horsemen ever. A lot of the viewers felt like Mongo didn't have that, and I know this isn't about Mongo, but I'm setting it over against Kevin Green, that Mongo didn't have the mic skills or whatever. He just didn't seem to be a fit. But I always kind of liked him, and that rivalry with Mongo was big time, man. I mean, it was cool. It was a crossover thing. I mean, it's those kinds of events are steeped in wrestling tradition. Whether you go back to like Refrigerator Perry being involved in WrestleMania and this and that. I mean, it was a classic wrestling move to draw this football player, the star of the gridiron, into the squared circle. And Kevin Green did a great job. And of course, you saw that he was influential in the war of the WCW against the New World Order. It was a lot of fun, man. Just added a lot of color. He was a good draw. I again, like we've said before, I was glad we got to see him. I was glad for his time. Obviously, I mean, he's not, he wasn't going to be one of the great wrestlers ever, and that's not what he was there to do. He was there to put others over and to elevate and represent the brand of the WCW at the time, and he did a great job and a credible job, and treated the sport of wrestling with a great deal of respect. He never minimized it. He never trivialized it. When you saw his war with Mongo, you felt like it was the real deal. Like you felt like that was straight up real heat. And heck, it might have been. I don't know. I wasn't, in the back room, but it was a lot of fun. And again, 58's way too young. A legend of football and a great treat to have in the squared circle. Once again, until Valhalla, thank you, Kevin Green.
There you go. I will say too, based on what you were just saying, it reminded me of something else I was hearing was Brian Alvarez talk about this a little bit on one thing I was listening to, and he rewatched all of that 90s WCW stuff. He wrote a book called The Death of WCW. And he was doing like a weekly show, like just recapping nitros and stuff from that time period. And he mentioned that, one thing he loved about the Kevin Green thing, he said, of course, the same things Eric Bischoff just said, it was like, you'd believe he'd always been a wrestler. Like he was actually really good at it. And he said, but it was interesting. Like, he was like, just one of the things we complain about these days with professional wrestling was like, Mongo turned on him and joined the Horsemen, and Kevin Green was gone. And then it wasn't until a year later in the next offseason that Kevin Green showed back up, and he showed back up in the crowd, I think. And the first thing he did was go after Mongo, who was in a match, and just start attacking Mongo. And he was like, he's just like, that's just the kind of thing you don't see anymore. Like WWE, he's like, you just expect to just drop it. Like if we're going to use them, let's move it on to something else. But he's like, that played out a year later. And he was like, and it made sense. And I was watching, it was like, wow, he should go after Mongo. Like and it's a year later. And he's like, he's held on to that grudge. He was like really impressed that even with WCW at that time, just that they kept that feud going throughout that time. But anyway, RIP Kevin Green, Danny Hodge, and Brodie Lee, or John Huber. And gosh, anything else you guys want to add? Just too many right here in a row.
Yeah, man, it's a rough week, man. But I do appreciate being able to come on here and celebrate these three guys with you guys and everyone here in the hashtag NWA and This Is Pro Wrestling Fam. Hopefully doing them justice and honoring them, and anybody who has that kind of an impact on the industry that we love and support so much. So
yeah, and only because Atlanta is NWA country. I'd be remiss if we didn't mention that we lost one of the great Atlanta Braves pitchers today, Phil Necro, legend, old Nuxie man, Hall of Famer, famous hurler of that knuckleball, just a great guy. I've met him many, many times. I'm sure Will's probably met him before. He's one of those guys that's very accessible. And before they moved into SunTrust, you could see him walk in the back to Turner Stadium back in the parking lot. Me and my buddies used to go and try to snag autographs, and he was always more than generous with his time and very kind and tender. When Piper was very, very little, he actually volunteered to have a picture with her because she was the prettiest girl there. And of course, she was the only girl there. There were just a bunch of old guys with beards. And she was there, but he was so gracious and kind. And I only mentioned, I know this is not a baseball interest podcast, but the NWA is synonymous with Atlanta. Power's house there. The tapings used to originate from there, and there's always been a relationship between the National Wrestling Alliance and the Atlanta Braves, it seems like. And so, again, tip the bottle until Valhalla. Phil Necro, Nuxie, rest in peace, my friend.
Keep drinking here. No, Phil Necro. I know Will's probably got better stuff, but I mean, even in the period where I was a Braves fan, that was just a legendary name. You just knew. And so when I saw that today, it even hit me. I was like, oh yeah, that guy, the legend, one of the Braves, one of those guys you'd expect to see like a shrine built to and that kind of thing. So
yeah, he won one of the retired jerseys. I think there are 9 of them. You've got Ted Williams, you've got Warren Spahn, Hank Aaron, Phil Niekro, Glavin, Smoltz, Maddox, Chipper Jones, Bobby Cox, Jackie Robinson. And then, of course, the next will be Freddie Freeman for sure. But Niekro is right there with him, man. And so he is enshrined, and he belongs to the ages now. So,
Rock says 79 mentioning Casey Jones of the Celtics, just since we're throwing those out there. But yeah, just 2020 has been a real bastard. And so lost a lot of people. And so hopefully you and yours are doing all right out there, everybody. We appreciate everybody listening and watching right now. Thank you for joining us.
All right, third right wing. Just that, my man. no shade on the Blue Jays, but he's ours. Now I respect that because he was not only a Brave, and you don't often find a player that just sticks with one team from time to time. You do like a Chipper Jones, but it's right. Niekro is also a legend of the Blue Jays, but first and foremost an Atlanta Brave.
You tell him, Rob. Oh man, it's almost hard like going into anything else today. Like it's just like it's so much tough stuff to cover. But I guess the only way to get us out of this, we have to bring it back to some positive news. And Rob, I know you can help us out with this part. Some big stuff happening today as our real world's heavyweight champion, Nick Aldis. He joins the 800 club. And so 800 days as the real world's heavyweight champion. Look at all those guys. I don't know why you selected the one picture to throw in there. He's the only man not in his underwear. But,
well, I can address that. And I hope we can spend a few minutes kind of dissecting this because this really is important. I saw some comments. There's a gentleman today on Twitter that actually made a remark about that. And this is a guy that I don't have anything against. I like the guy. He did when COVID broke out. He was very faithful to drop a lot of content out there for us to watch. I think he put a TNA show out there every day, and I appreciated that. And this is a particular guy who's outspoken and obviously he has very strong feelings about this. And if you followed along today, it got a little heated. It's not, for me, it's not anything personal. And when we're talking about the sport of wrestling, there's no reason to get personal about it. You can have a debate about this and all that, but really he made the point that he was in the suit because he doesn't wrestle. And I was like, that's laughable. First of all, I made that illustration there. I crafted that on Canva and PowerPoint. The only reason I use that, I like what Ryan Romano said, because Aldis invented the suit. That's true. Well, it's really for two reasons. One, without diminishing the other 800 days guy, I wanted to kind of distinguish Aldis because it is his day. He's joining the club today, and I wanted to set him apart. But the real reason is, and I thought about doing him in color. And the real reason, though, is because there's just not any accessible photographs out there of the champ from head to toe where you see his feet. And if you notice, everybody's kind of standing there. And if you go and search, there's some great imagery of the champ. I've got several 8x10s and this and that, but there's not any where you have him from toe to foot to head in his ring attire with a belt. And this is really the only. Actually, I think I took this at a still out of a match or out of a rings. It might have been a screen cap from an actual in-ring thing that he was in on TV, and I screen capped the video or whatever. But I wanted to distinguish him and find a way to appropriately welcome him to the club. So I thought I'll put him in color, but then I couldn't find a photo of him in ring attire from head to foot. So that's why he's in suit. But I like Romano. He invented the suit. He wears the suit the best. You don't look at any of these other champions, and not to diminish them, but no one thinks of Dan Severn and Harley Race and Luthez, Pat O'Connor, Gene Kiniski, and Dory Funk Jr. as being styling and profiling. It's Aldis that is known to carry on that Ric Flair panache. And I know you got them. They just weren't accessible to me. And maybe you can share some of those with me for future projects, because here in 100 days, we'll be doing the 900 club. And then in 200, he'll be in the Millennium Club. But today is the day. In history, there have been 96 officially recognized NWA World's title reigns. Officially recognized now. That doesn't include the non-officially recognized titles where a championship might have changed hands in, say, the Dominican Republic or Puerto Rico, or a transition in Japan, or a title switch here and there for a couple of days that the NWA either retracted its recognition or never did recognize. That doesn't account for the championship reigns that precede 1948, because the NWA didn't just get invented one day. When Orville Brown was recognized in 1948, they were trying to discipline a professional wrestling landscape that was already in disarray, and there were splinter championships here and there, and they wanted to shine the light on the one man who had the lineal championship, and that was Orville Brown. And the belt that he held at the time, the National Wrestling Association title, goes back to the 30s, and that one goes back even further. You can even make the argument, and we're going to do so in our podcast. I'm going to try to do so, that you can make a disjointed, and I might be stretching, and I probably am. You can make a claim that this championship that the champ wears today is the same one that you're going to find in the 1860s and 70s, when you have catch titles and American championships being represented, and all those titles eventually come to fruition in the person of Orville Brown, through taking a turn through Frank Gotch and George Hackenschmidt and Stanislaw Zbyszko and some others. Ultimately, it rests upon Orville Brown, and that is the trophy that Nick Aldis wears today. It's the same title, and say what you want about it, and maybe we can get into it for a few minutes, and I'm sure the chat will want to participate in this, but statistically speaking, in its history, since the foundations of the world, of those 96 official recognized title reigns, only 8 of them, shared by 7 people, Luthez has 2 of them, only 8 of them had ever reached the 800-day mark or beyond, for whatever reason. 800 days. And we can talk about precedent, we can talk about COVID, and hopefully we will, but I just want to, and I'll leave it to you, and then we'll go into some points, because there's a case I want to lay out for the legitimacy and the importance of this particular reign tonight. But say what you want about it. We'll get into it today. The reign hits the 800-day mark, and I'm proud of our champion. I think he represents this company fabulously like no one else could. Thunder Rosa does a great job on the women's end. Serena Deeb is just now getting her start. But the NWA has not had a deficiency of great representatives to carry the brand, and the one that's been the face of the company has been Thunder Rosa, and has been Nick Aldis, hands down. And Aldis has done a tremendous job with what he's had to work with.
Hey, Rob, I got to say, I got 2 points to make, and one of them involves a question. Roscoe D, thanks for joining the chat there, Roscoe. One of them involves the question that he just asked, and another involves a point there. I just want to remind people real quick, if they can, if you love conversations like this, you love seeing the history appreciated, you love being part of a educated wrestling community that welcomes newbies and the people that just respect the history and tradition of it, make sure you join us more often, and you can do that by liking and subscribing to the show. We would really appreciate it if you go to youtube.com and check us out. This is Pro Wrestling. Make sure to subscribe there. It's like youtube.com/TIPW show, or just search us. We're there. And when you see these videos, hit that like button. It helps us out. It helps us get in front of more people. We're trying to build one of the best communities around. So all of that said, 2 things I wanted to mention to you, Rob, is one, I think you have no reason to feel like you need to justify yourself to anyone. I think the amount of engagement that this post got today about the 800 Club, I think that's all the evidence that you need to hear, that people appreciate that kind of historical data, and they appreciate you recognizing it and pointing it out. People were more excited. There's like 2 people, I think, I saw in that whole thread being real negative about it, and that's unfortunate that the world works that way. That's not the kind of community we're kind of trying to cultivate here. More people than not loved that piece of information, and most importantly, even the champ himself, and I'm sure the company, other wrestlers, that sort of thing. That's all cool stuff to them. You're trying to have a good time, and we're grateful to have you and keeping track of that. So don't feel like you gotta ever worry about.
Oh, I don't worry about it. I'm a veteran of the war in Afghanistan. I make 6 figures a year, just like the champ does. I'm a doctor. I ain't worried about it. This ain't about self-validation for me. I'm just pointing out facts. I'm talking facts here, okay? And I don't have any deal with anybody. Actually, and I did see some questions. I didn't feel like any of the engagement really was negative. I thought there were some legit questions in there, which I think the champion himself would share. Only one person I felt got negative, and this is a guy that, again, even now, I don't. It's not personal. I don't dislike the guy. I don't have anything. I don't know the guy, but I felt like he was his attack on the champ became personal and it was driven by, I think, a personal animosity towards him, which I don't know the history between them two. He tried to attribute it to us, but I don't think that's the case because as long as I've known this guy, he has been talking about how he'd been blocked by the champion on social media. I don't want to make this discussion about him because that wasn't the point. I didn't wake up this morning thinking, hey, I'm going to upset this guy. I wanted to point out something. Hey, pretty cool achievement today in light of all the negativity that's been going on. Our champion, the champion of the greatest promotion, who holds the lineal title going back to days when they thought the world was flat, bruh. Today, he reached 800 days as champion on his second title reign. Somebody, I think, Roxez or Roscoe, I think, pointed out that he's over 1,000 days, 1,065 days for his 2 combined reigns. Let's not forget that his first reign was over 200 days, which is significant in itself. And I appreciate James Lawrence, If it weren't for COVID, this man would still be champion and he'd still be defending. And he was about to go to Puerto Rico to defend against Carlito. He was on his way to the UK. He was about to take on Marty Scurll for his second or third time. Second time, I think, yeah. And what would have been an epic match. We had gotten tickets. We were going to be there. My daughter was going to be talking about it from ages hence. The night my dad took me to see Nick Aldis bury Marty Scurll once and for all, All that stuff was that no one can say Aldis is not a fighting champion. So I'm confident. I don't need anybody's permission. Here's what I want to lay out though. If we got a minute, I want to say that the criticism.
Well, let me do this real quick because I want to make sure we acknowledge Roscoe's question just to throw it for some more historical perspective, and I think this will actually build on what you're trying to say here. I did grab this because I had the same question that Roscoe's asking in the chat, and it's this. He's like, who's the next he can overtake? And where does this rank? Like, who else is in this list? Right. So you see the folks here.
That's your combined reigns. And
I couldn't find one that separated out the reigns.
Let me see.
You do.
I've got it. Yeah, let me see if I can't. This is going to be the 8th longest single reign. Remember, 2 of those reigns are going to be held by Luther. So you got 8 reigns shared by 7 men. And the next longest reign is right around the corner. It's Pat O'Connor with 903 days, followed by Harley Race with 926 days. Then Gene Kiniski with 1131. Dan Severn with 1479. Dory Funk Jr., that legendary reign, which is in the memory of maybe some people here in the chat, though, if there's anybody in their 60s. 1563 days, and of course Luthez at 1941, which may never ever be overtaken. But the next let's put it in perspective, because the allegation was made that he was blocked because we were trying to say that Nick Aldis is greater than Flair, which we never said. Flair is Flair, Aldis is Aldis, or 2 different champions at different times. But Flair's longest reign, single reign, was 793 days, and Nick Aldis just overtook that 6 or 7 days ago. That alone is a feat that's worth mentioning. And in 103 days, which is a little over 3 months from now, if he's able to defend against others, and there are going to be others, 2021 is going to be different. But when he reaches that 903-day mark, he'll be tied with Pat O'Connor for 6th longest reign of all time. So lots of history on the horizon. Will he make it? I don't know. I don't know if he'll make it. I mean, we've got guys out there just chomping at the bit to get a shot at the champion. And
I love that we're just in the middle of history right here. Like, there's a good chance. I mean, as this goes on, he's about to cross Adam Pearce. So he's going to move up in combined days. He's about to move up into 7th place. There's a great possibility he hits Gene Kiniski. The tough one, though, is going to be, I mean, you're talking about, I mean, maybe he gets, Dan Severn, that's another year with the title.
Right. I don't think that this is the tough one that you're showing, though, because these are combined reigns. Let's say Nick Aldis He's just a pup. He's just a baby. He's only in his second reign. Think about where Rick was in his second title reign. You got great competition out there. You got lots of people on the horizon that could theoretically. And again, let me preface all we're about to say by saying it's not Nick Aldis out there gloating. Yeah, Nick Aldis retweeted or shared something that I posted, but Nick Aldis is not out there gloating. Hey, I made 800 days. That's all me. I'm the one doing that. The fans are doing that. I'm the one acknowledging this. Nick Aldis is as humble as can get, as he understands this landscape and the nature of the world. And I promise you, this is the greatest fighting champion of the last, 4 or 5 years. And he wants to be defending that title day in and day out. He wants to be doing that. And hopefully the conditions will get there again. But Aldis is only he was born in 1986. So he's 34 years old. He's young. He's just a kid, I mean, he's old enough to be, because, when I was 10 years old, boy, I was the man. So he's old enough to be not my younger brother, but my young son. I thought that was clever. Anyway.
Well, that got awkward.
Yeah. All right. But I did want to make the point that it's not all this out there for people who want to. I put this out there and then it strikes a nerve with some people. Like all this is the one gloating. He's not doing that. I'm gloating for him. I'm the one who's making the point that, hey, all this is never once. I think when he hit 500 days, he put out an 8x10 to sell for merchandise. He's not said a word about 600, 700, or 800 days. I have done the same because I'm pointing out the facts. So anytime somebody wants to, take a shot at this, most of these objections, Aldis will share with you. Aldis will say, the landscape is not what I want it to be. I want to be out there defending it more like I was during the Aldis Crusade. I want to take the belt to England like I've done before. I want to take the belt around. I want to defend it here and there, and the time will get back there. But still, he's still in this reign defended it close to 30 times. He's defended it 5 times this year. J-Cal has a great, very respectful podcast, talking about the 5 defenses. It's not really an argument against the legitimacy of the Aldis reign. It's more just a series of questions about why is he not doing what Thunder Rosa is doing? Why is he not doing this? Why is he not doing that? And again, there's a lot of assumptions being made there, but nothing about the legitimacy. But one of J. Cal's, I thought very interesting, one of the points he made was like, let's look at Dan Severn. Dan Severn did this and that, and then he goes on to say how in 95, Dan Severn defended the belt 17 times and 7 defenses in the MMA, but then in 96, he defended it 7 times. I'm like, well, Aldis has defended it 5 times. So if he defended it 2 more times, would that satisfy the critics? No, it wouldn't. No one's going to be satisfied because a lot of these criticisms have to do with one of 3 things. Either they don't like the NWA and don't think that the NWA is a legitimate promotion anymore. They personally don't like Aldis and don't think that he's the appropriate man to be the front man for the company, or they think there's a stigma on this reign because of COVID or something else. It's one of those 3 things. And each of those 3 points we can debate and we can knock it off. And that's the kind of thing that rubs me wrong about the exchange this morning. Like a guy just rapidly tweets out something as though I can adequately respond to that in 280 characters. Then he goes on and makes a post on his own page about how, I silenced another one in the win column for me. Like, I can't respond to you, dude. Come on here and we'll have an exchange one-on-one if you want to. If you're arguing about the NWA, which he did, he attacked the NWA as a legitimate promotion. We can have that argument, okay, about what it used to be and what it was. The point is, just bare facts. The NWA is the lineal promotion. It's the one that's universally respected. The belt hangs in WWE offices. They respect it so much. They revitalized it. Nick Aldis has almost universal respect among his peers in the business. The legitimacy that he's brought to the title, the diplomacy, the way he's carried himself, his bearing, just that alone legitimizes it, not to mention the Aldis Crusade. Now we're getting to point 2, which is the legitimacy of Aldis. The Aldis Crusade. Who's Aldis beaten? Who's he done? Who's he wrestling? He's wrestling everybody he's had to. Who's he beaten in between his 2 reigns? He's beaten guys, I don't know, like Jake Hager, Flip Gordon, who just main event, a Ring of Honor pay-per-view the other day. He's beaten Brian Cage, who's one of the biggest dudes in the world right now. Who did he beat before that? I don't know. A guy named Sting and Kurt Angle. Sting may be older, but Sting paid the ultimate honor to Nick Aldis, allowing him to be one of only 4 or 5 guys to ever submit Sting. Why? Why did Sting do that? It wasn't because, well, it was just time to pass the torch to any old dude. He did it because he recognized Aldis for his potential and for what he is and what he offers to the sport, and that is legitimacy. And even we got guys like Wrestling with the MMA here in the chat. Wrestling with the MMA has been critical of Nick Aldis. He's been critical of him from a heel babyface standpoint. Even a guy like him will tell you that, yeah, he may be a jerk, but he's our jerk, and he's respectful. He adds honor and prestige to this championship, and he elevates the brand like nobody else could. And then you get to the so we're talking about attacks on the company, which we can refute. Attacks on the legitimacy or the sufficiency of Aldis as a worker himself, which to me is the most idiotic of the claims, and it is idiotic. And then the third is the legitimacy of this particular reign, the reign that now has reached 27 title defenses. Yeah, there's only been 5 this year, but it's not like they're slouchers. You've got Noby Bryant. You've got Mike Bennett, who's one of the hottest names in the world right now. Flying Brian Jr., who's appearing on AEW. He is trying to get out there to the extent that he can. I don't know why he's not defending as much as Thunder Rosa. I have the utmost respect for Thunder Rosa. We brag. This is like the Thunder Rosa Mutual Appreciation Society on this chat. We love Brian and Thunder for what they've done for the company, and not taking anything away from them, but that's apples and oranges. Thunder Rosa and Nick Aldis are 2 different people with 2 different contracts, with 2 different sets of stipulations, 2 different, manners about being. Nick Aldis doesn't own his own promotion. Thunder Rosa is legit. She is legit. Everything she's done is legit, but so is Nick Aldis. And if you want to say that the deficiency with this reign is that he did not defend it enough, the first person to agree with you, the very first person to agree with you, I promise you, will be Nick Aldis. He'll be the first person to agree with you and concede that point. He wants to defend it more to the extent that he's been able to through his circumstances. He has done so, and he's done so with honor.
Well, Rob, I think one point that people need to realize too is that we love Thunder Rosa, and she is luckily in part of her deal is able to go out and have matches. I think that, title matches are sanctioned by the National Wrestling Alliance. So to go back to one of the things you said, I mean, Nick Aldis as the carrier of the 10 pounds of gold, like he literally, all of his matches have to be sanctioned by the National Wrestling Alliance. He does not book his own matches. So that's another factor. I mean, maybe I'm talking out of school here, but that's a thing too. Like, I mean, like you said, how many wins has he had? Who's he beaten? As many, and then everybody he's had to. Like, that's the thing. Like, he's not out there. He wishes it was different too, but the brand National Wrestling Alliance, the title that he carries, they dictate that for him. So when he's been given a challenger and booked on a card, he's been there. He's shown up, even when other competitors didn't in certain cases. So, there you go.
Yeah, I'll jump in. We've given critics and people far too much airtime, I feel like, on this show.
Right.
So I'm just going to say I am a wrestling fan. I'm an NWA fan. And the same way I'm a Braves fan, right? And there's years where I wish I wasn't a Braves fan, right? It wasn't as fun. This year with COVID, staff changes, controversies, things like that, it's been a tough year, but I'm an NWA fan. And when you talk about something like a milestone of 800 days with the 10 pounds of gold, the only discussion that should be happening is, wow, what an accomplishment. Because it's historic. And, you can split hairs and you can debate all you want about this and that, but man, Nick Aldis is a worthy champ. He's represented the company, the brand well. And as a wrestling fan, you should just be happy. And if you're not interested in being a wrestling fan, if you're more interested in like crushing other people's hopes and dreams, then go back to Twitter and go live there. You know what I mean? This is a place where we're going to celebrate history, legacy, and tradition, like we talk about all the time. And what happened today is history that we're living. And so I'm excited about it. And I'm kind of with you guys. I can't wait to see the next milestone and be able to celebrate that, and what happens when things get ramped back up and get kind of a regular cadence going. And but either I mean, for me, it comes down to either you're a fan of the NWA or you're not, or you respect the prestige of the 10 pounds of gold, or you don't. And that doesn't mean you can't have criticisms, but it just means that's where we're coming from, and that's where this podcast stands. So we're going to celebrate it unapologetically.
Well, the thing you're saying that really drives me crazy too, not that you're saying that drives me crazy, but that I appreciate so much that you point out, is that we're all just wrestling fans. We're just here having a good time, and we're talking about professional wrestling here. I want to say this in the most respectful way possible, but we're talking about this thing that, like, a lot of the world just completely has shunned, and for a long time, and it's definitely not at its peak right now in popularity. And we're here still enjoying it right now as a community. Everybody in this chat, everybody watching who's not talking in the chat, we appreciate you. And you're all people that love the business of professional wrestling. You have your preferences. You have your things you like more than other stuff and that sort of thing. And if somebody's having a good time and telling you where this stands and the legitimacy and legacy of the National Wrestling Alliance, the original World's Heavyweight Championship, you might argue, then that's awesome. Like, that's a fun thing to have. Like, don't you want to keep that legacy alive? Like, I just feel like that's a simple answer. Like, you should love that. You should think it's cool. You should appreciate a lot of the cool things that are going on in professional wrestling right now. So I don't get why anybody gets upset over this thing. Like, legitimately seems to get bothered. That's the part that always drives me crazy. It's like, and I mean that on the negative or even the positive, like, you think your brand's so much better than another brand that you just, like, can't stand AEW marks, or WWE fans are such losers. Like, what are you doing? And that whole thing, they're you're taking it too far. Like, this should be fun for all of us. You should love professional wrestling. And now, God bless it all, we are in a glorious time in our lives, in history, where there are so many options of things to watch. So you don't have to watch WWE. You don't have to watch AEW. You don't have to care about the NWA. The idea that you feel it necessary to take time out of your day to like maneuver yourself into a feed to say something negative in those realms that's always the part that drives me crazy. It's just like, why do you care? Now, if you want to love something and you want to have, like, debate about how you think it could be better or worse or whatever, I mean, I think there's a difference, right? Like, there's a difference between having that discussion and still appreciating that it exists, and then just being like, this is trash. Like, it's just all trash and I hate it. Hopefully that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And again, I mean, we'll have this conversation again. Should Nick Aldis be fortunate enough to maintain the title for another 100 days? And we don't know that. I mean, the landscape probably is going to change very soon now that vaccinations are going out, and hopefully we're starting to get a hold on the virus. If he makes it another 100 days, I'm going to make another 900-day club post, and then we'll have the same debate. Someone will say something about, oh, who's he wrestled? Well, he's only done this and this, but this person's doing that, and this territory is doing this. Oh, yeah, I know the pandemic. Everybody's talking about the pandemic, but this and that. I'm like, well, don't dismiss the pandemic. I mean, the pandemic permanently closed some promotions down. Not only the pandemic, but also the speaking out movement, closed some promotions down. All these things coalesced into a perfect storm of just drama and all that. But the champ has done what he's done. He's done it with dignity. He's done it with grace. We saw him in person on December the 10th. He's not lost a bit of in-ring ability. I mean, these guys will tell you, when he came out there, it felt like a big deal. It felt like we were about to see something important. And
those people all knew. And he was a general in the middle of the ring. He still had it. He was ready. And we talked to him. He's ready to go. He wants to defend that title. There's nothing about Nick Aldis that's resting on his laurels. Like, he is ready to defend that World's Heavyweight Championship. Will he always do it fairly? That remains to be seen. But
he does.
And let me just say this. If you're looking to have an intelligent conversation about professional wrestling, welcome, right? We have those all the time in our Discord right here in the chat. But if you're looking to come in here and convince these three guys that you're looking at right now that the NWA is not a legitimate promotion and Nick Aldis is not a legitimate champion, let me just tell you right now to save your breath, because it ain't gonna happen. So you're wasting your time. Really, you're wasting our time. 800 days, champ.
Absolutely, man. Raise a glass to
freedom. Raise a glass to Nick Aldis. Congratulations on 800 days. Since we know he's in the room, let's throw it back up there one more time. The 800 Club, the only man in a suit, because as Ryan Romano pointed out, he invented the suit. There it is. No Amongst doubt. All the greats, there is the real world's heavyweight champion, Nick Aldis.
Our friends, again, just mark my words, take notes even. When we get to day 900 and we have this conversation again because somebody wants to pop off in Twitter, and hide behind a keyboard, we're going to make the same 3 points. Their attack is either against the NWA. Just note this, 3 arguments. Either against the NWA as a legitimate promotion, which is a ridiculous argument. Either against Nick Aldis as a worthy performer in the ring, which is plumb silly, probably the silliest of the arguments. And then they will attack the legitimacy of the COVID reign. I'm not even going to call it a COVID reign because there's 27 defenses that I know of. There's probably more that I don't even have documented. But just some of the names, Gary, can I just run some of the opponents down here?
Rob, would you run some of the names that have been opponents here?
Rob, can you go through some of the names of the opponents for us?
He's defeated Cody Rhodes, right? He's defeated Brandon Scott, Jake Hager of the Inner Circle, Brian Cage, Billy Gunn, took the belt to England on a Christmas tour, mind you, and beat Ricky Knight Jr., Jimmy Havoc, Easton Reese. He's beaten James Storm a couple of times. He's beaten Tim Storm a couple of times. PJ Black, Shane Strickland, Leland Race of Race Royalty, Tommy Mack, Marty Skrull, Brad Slayer, King Shane Williams, one of my favorite guys, a guy who's a regional talent here in the Tennessee area that I think has got star power all over him. Dirty Money, Brandon Gore, Ricky Morton, Flip Gordon, Noby Bryant, Mike Bennett, Brian Pillman Jr. That is not a shabby list at all. There's nothing deficient about that list. Those are worthy names, worthy opponents. Nick Aldis, who's he beaten, you ask? He's beaten them all. He's beaten everybody he has to. He is the legitimate lineal world champion. And again, I know Nick's in the chat here. It's not him out there making the case. He didn't post that today. I posted it. I'm the one who made it. He's not out there gloating about, I've reached this milestone. He doesn't do that. He leaves his business inside the ring. He leaves it up to us to do that. And it's worth mentioning today he joins one of the most prestigious clubs in the greatest sport in the history of the world, the 800 Club. And 100 more days we'll be having this discussion. Mark my words.
Absolutely. And he mentions here, first of all, congratulations on the new house. If you guys follow the champ on Twitter and Instagram, you see he's got a new house, but doing some decorating. And he's not losing sleep over critics, and neither are we. So we set our piece, and right now we're just going to celebrate 800 days and beyond, and everything that's meant for us personally. I mean, I know for me personally, I can speak to just the reinvigoration of pro wrestling for me, who was a kind of disgruntled mainstream pro wrestling fan and was reintroduced to my love of pro wrestling through the 10 Pounds of Gold series, which obviously was Tim Storm transitioning to Nick Aldis with the 10 Pounds of Gold. And that, I mean, it's been nothing but good for fans like me. And so it's a huge milestone. Many more, I'm sure, to come. And as Rob's mentioned over and over, Nick's got a lot of matches ahead of him, and we're not even really scratching the surface of what all of this is going to mean. So we're witnessing history. Stoked about it, and it's a great day to be an NWA fan, if you ask me.
Yeah, I think some people just aren't going to accept anything until we're back, like Front Row says here in the GPB studio with the NWA fam. Let's go 2021. Yeah, 100% agree with that. James Lawrence in the chat pointing out a champion across his promotional line, wins the belt on multiple continents. James Lawrence will let you know if he is critical of something you're doing, and he's over here telling you that Nick Aldis is the World's Heavyweight Championship, the champion, the real World's Heavyweight Champion. So props to Nick Aldis for crossing 800 days. We showed you the list. He's about to head on up the list in terms of combined reigns even. So that's pretty impressive. He's about to butt heads with Dan Severn. And before this thing's over, Nick Aldis, I mean, that dude's going to be right there at the top of the list. Why can't just that's my thing. It just makes me want to shake people sometimes. Enjoy history, because this thing's going to matter. Even 100 years from now, you could say you were here when Nick Aldis, the dealer, Aldis, took that World's Heavyweight Championship, and he made history. He worked himself up into that top 10. Rob,
well, I can promise you, just because, not to sound like a pessimist, but just because I know humans, when Ric Flair was going through those reigns, there was probably people going, the only difference was they didn't have Twitter, and they couldn't broadcast their opinion like it mattered to everyone and position themselves as a troll like that. But there was tons of people going, oh, this isn't legit. Oh, that match wasn't blah, 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 blah. And critics, well, where are they now? Nobody's talking about that. So, we're wasting entirely too much time giving critics their due when literally 3 months from now it ain't even going to matter, because nobody's going to remember anything they're saying.
Guys, I'm feeling old school. I'm seeing the chats go. I'm sorry, Rob. Did I cut you off?
No, you're right. I just wanted to Will's point, and I didn't want to cut you off, Gary, because I think I know what you're about to say.
Oh, we're just like mutual respect, Rob.
But speaking about precedent,
because I
referenced Jay Cal's podcast, and here's the thing about
my wife.
Jay Cal's podcast. Here's the difference between what he said and what the fool said this morning, is that Jay Cal was respectful. He was personally respectful. He didn't attack the champ. He didn't say anything demeaning. He didn't say, blah, blah, blah. He wasn't. He was just saying, look, COVID. The thing I didn't. I took notes on it, and I was like, yeah.
That dude was being a dick, Rob, and you're being really nice about it. And I feel like I'm the nicest of the bunch. And no, he was being a dick is what was happening.
Yeah, well, I don't have anything personally against the guy, but to me, I just feel like, well, if he wants to say, and I'm not talking about Jay Cal here, I'm talking about the other, to say, hey, I'm just arguing facts. I'm like, well, you're not arguing facts. You're arguing personal vendetta. We're actually literally arguing facts. It's not like we're on Aldis's payroll, or like we had, he tried to make that point. No, he's just nice to you. It's like, you don't know me. You don't know anything about me or whatever. Aldis acknowledges people when it's appropriate and all that, but I don't know anything about you, and you don't know anything about me. I respect Aldis. I respected Aldis well before I ever had the first conversation with a man, because of what he was achieving in the ring. He earned my respect. You know what I mean? But I wanted to just to zero in on Jay Cal for a second, because I felt Jay Cal's podcast was not disrespectful. I felt like it was misguided. It was on the 5 defenses of 2020, and he kept going back and saying 4 defenses. Like, it's 5 defenses, 5 legit defenses. But he kept saying things like, well, I know the pandemic, and everybody talks about the pandemic, whatever. And I'm like, well, don't dismiss the pandemic. The pandemic is there, and that is the solitary single reason why Nick Aldis is not out there doing what he wants to be doing. That is the reason, I mean, Aldis will be the first to tell you that. He'll join alongside you to say those things. But when he's been able to get them in, they've been legit defenses. Every single one of those 5 guys, from Noby Bryant to Ricky Morton to Mike Bennett to Brian Pillman Jr., have deserved a shot at this, and then we get into an argument about precedent, and Jay Cal goes into the precedent of Zabo during World War II and Carino after 9/11, and I was like, well, those are precedents, but there are counter precedents too. You understand? I mean, there's a counter precedence of World War I, where Earl Caddick left the country with the belt, didn't defend the championship in over a year, came back as the champion. 9/11 is not, I don't think, I mean, that was a national crisis, but I don't think it's analogous at all. It's not like you had a global shutdown for months on end. You did have a freezing of transportation for a few weeks, and there was defenses, and both Szabo and Carino did great jobs representing what they had to during those times. But there have been champions that have not defending the belt for 100 days without any situation. Brock Lesnar went something like 97 days without a single title defense, with no global pandemic, no global catastrophe. No one doubts or disputes the legitimacy of the reign of Brock Lesnar. I mean, somebody might out there do it, but they can't do so with any credibility, I don't believe. Or, you have the counter argument of Dan Severn, who was a fighting champion for sure, but in 1 year of his reign without a global pandemic, he was doing MMA on the side, as though Nick Aldis doesn't also have his side pursuits, his own businesses and ventures also. But, you have 1 year where he only defended the championship 7 times without a global pandemic. That's not, you're not, shattering records with those. I mean, and that's not taking anything away from Severn, but I'm not criticizing Severn. It's something about like Aldis, like they're zeroing on Aldis because of the 5-day, and they're throwing out counter examples that I think that can be.
Rob, it's just it's really no. I'm sorry, I know. No, you're just jumping in and saying, like, I mean, I really believe it. You're right. It is Aldis, but it's because Aldis is the man now, and. Right. So it's just some people just gotta, when you're on top, they gotta knock you down. I feel like I saw an interview with The Undertaker once where he even said the same thing. Like, just like anytime you're on top, somebody's got to try to pull you down, and it's just the way it is, man. And just to throw it out there, Woodland Goblin asking, I thought J Cal was our guy. No, that's why he's getting name dropped, dude. I promise you, like Woodland, no worries, no heat with J Cal. He's the guy. Yeah. He even came to the defense of the champ in that thread that Stinson's mentioning right now. He came to defense and said, like, I got blocked by the champ, and I'm telling you, the champ's phenomenal. And
that's the point, man. J Cal can make an argument in a respectful way. He wasn't personal. He raised legitimate points. I think many of the points you raised, the champ would share, though. I mean, this was an attack on the legitimacy of all this. It was questions like, why is this happening? Why are we seeing, Thunder Rosa is able to do this, and this, but Nick Aldis is, I don't think he was ever throwing shade on the champion, and he was respectful in his tone the whole time, as he always is. But see, J Cal is the kind of guy, and he is a friend of ours. J Cal is the kind of guy that can throw an argument out there, and he can take a rebuttal with dignity and grace. And like he's just literally done a minute ago on Twitter.
Well, and J Cal, it was blocked by the champ, and is still able to handle it in a like try to tackle this as a logical way. Listen, I got to throw this out there to you guys. It's just the nature of the beast with Twitter. The first interview I ever had with this show, like starting it at the beginning with This Is the NWA podcast, it was with Nick Aldis, who was gracious enough to grant me a lot of time, more time than he had to. And we had a whole conversation. But one of the things that comes up in that interview, if you travel all the way back in the podcast there, is he talks about picking up a cue from CM Punk. Like he name dropped CM Punk to say that the first thing he saw, like in regards to Twitter, that he took to with wrestling was with CM Punk, that CM Punk had like, or at least it was a phrase that he latched onto, was that CM Punk said, if I've got a guy outside my bedroom window and he's just constantly yelling trash at me, like just talking shit to me, I've got a few options. I could yell back out my window, or I could just shut the window. I just shut the window. And so the champ is picking up on that cue. That's what he does. So if you're going to just stand out there and you're just going to be like an ass, you're probably going to get blocked. Like, it's just the way that it is. And J Cal was critical, and he did get blocked, and I think he understands that, and he hopes that one day that'll change. But I'm just saying, it's just if you're out there talking trash about people, there's a chance that's going to happen to you. So anyway, this other guy, I guess the point to round it off was going to be this other guy seems to have really taken that personally or something. I don't know, but he's very, very angry. I have to bring this up just to throw it in there. You called Aldis out with the Tim Storm incident for 30 minutes that night on the podcast, and you were fair. Yeah, which is why the champ addressed us back. Thank you for remembering, Woodland. I appreciate you.
Well, and the only other thing I'll add in terms of J-Cal also didn't tout being blocked by the champ as like a badge of honor, which is what trolls do. So, listen, this is pro wrestling. It's not personal. This is something we're all fans of. This is something that brings us joy. It's not politics, that can be so divisive, and it's not meant to be fun. Pro wrestling's meant to be fun. It's meant to be enjoyed. And so when it gets to the point where it's not enjoyable like that, it's time to cut off that conversation, that communication. So to your point and that CM Punk quote, yeah, I'm right there with it.
Oh, you picked the wrong day, bro. Like I watched Soul, the new Pixar movie earlier today, and man, I'm all about like just living life, man. You can't why you want to waste your time on stuff that doesn't bring you joy? That's stupid. Like just
man. And bottom line, just to tie a bow on this particular, because I know we got other things we want to get into, but bottom line is this. During this year, Aldis did not create COVID-19. Aldis does not own the NWA. Okay, he didn't create the situation. He was prepared to go around the globe to continue the championship. All I want to say is that during this particular era, there could not have been two better people to carry this company than Thunder Rosa and Nick Aldis. And even though Thunder Rosa is not the champion currently, what she did for the NWA and what Nick Aldis has done for the NWA has been phenomenal. They represented this brand and this company with dignity, grace, with diplomacy, like statesmen, like something like the championship was bigger than just a title that you defended in the ring. They were out there doing charitable work, representing. I remember that address that Nick gave right before right after the shutdown when Crockett Cup was canceled, and it was like watching the Queen of England speak to the people. He did so with reassurance and all that, and they've done a great job. And they're worthy champions, they're worthy competitors, they're worthy representatives, and we were blessed to have them this year because I can't imagine them. People meet their times and they're fitted for their times, and it's not to say that someone else, let's say Tim Storm had been champion, that he wouldn't have done a great job, because I'm confident he would have. But I feel like Aldis and Thunder Rosa were uniquely fitted for this circumstance. They carried it, and it's even today. It's like anytime you hear Aldis speak, whether it's in an interview, or whether it's cutting a promo or whatever, when he speaks with authority, and you feel like it's the most important thing in the world. When he's talking, and he here's to the next 100 days, and hopefully we get more ring time, and that's I promise you that's what he wants more than anything else. But to those who disagree, I don't hate you. I don't disrespect. I don't have anything personal. My friend J. Cal and I, we can disagree with grace and dignity and still respect each other afterwards. But I'm gonna tell you, Nick Aldis J. Cal doesn't personally attack people and doesn't take things personally to heart. He's a full-grown man who can engage in discourse and dialogue and debate, and still at the end of the day enjoy the greatest sport in the world and have fun with it. And so that's why J. Cal has my respect. And others, I'm not going to say they've lost my respect, but it's been impaired a little bit.
Well, let me just throw this in there so everybody doesn't think we're just like ragging on J. Cal here. Literally, like 5 or 6 minutes ago, he posted this, and this is just really just want to show off the skills we have on this team to bring to light stuff in a production manner. Here he goes. Look, for those complaining about the lack of defense, it took an entire calendar year to crown a new champion when WCW split from the NWA for a final time. An entire year without activity. I don't like 5, but I'll take 5 over none any day of the week. So even J. Cal right there defending the reign here and the title defenses this year. He's been critical, but he's saying better than nothing. He'll take that over nothing. So, that's a man with logic. That's a man trying to have a legitimate discussion about these things. All right. Well, we're listen, man. We're just like moving along. We're chugging along. We got bogged down in Nick Aldis talk and all of that stuff. But there's plenty of other people to talk about. Rob, I was saying I was feeling old school because we just got a lot of NWA and just like felt like it got the people going in the chat. It just like got people fired up. So there's a TV champ. He's the Pope's over there. Trevor Murdoch's in there as the national champion. There's tag team champions.
Can I say one more old school thing, man? One more old school thing?
Bring it.
All right, one more old school thing before we move on from this topic. Because no one in their reasonable mind, and I'm sure they're out there. Trust me, they exist. But no one is out there disputing the legitimacy of any of the title reigns of Ric Flair, right? Have you heard anybody doing that? I mean, you don't typically see them.
Nobody would dare.
But let's think back to, I want to say, Front Row or somebody, maybe MMA or definitely Lawrence can correct me on this if I'm wrong, but I want to say 87, 88, that time frame. It was right before, and it would have been maybe 89, right before Sting wins the championship at the Great American Bash. There was a series of matches that seemed to last about a year. One of them was at Capital Combat, in which RoboCop himself made an appearance. But a series of matches between Ric Flair and Lex Luger. And it became almost predictable that Ric Flair would every single time, Ric Flair would get himself intentionally disqualified against Lex Luger. You remember that? Y'all remember what I'm talking about? But no one back then says, Ric Flair is an illegitimate champion. Even though he's in the ring, I mean, he was taking shortcuts. Eventually, they had to put like J.J. Dillon in the cage over the ring and this and that, and they had to do this and that to, attach Ole Anderson to El Gigante. But all these different scenarios, no one's debating the legitimacy of Ric Flair. Here's the thing about Aldis. And we talk about the Tim Storm incident. I think the champ is misunderstood there. there's another slant on that. But say what you want about Aldis, but this Joker, when he gets in the ring, he doesn't take the shortcuts. I think in this reign, Aldis might have been disqualified one time, and that was, I can tell you the date. It was on April the 14th, 2019. In Columbus, Ohio, at Masters of the Craft 2019, day 176 of the second reign of Aldis. Aldis wrestled Colt Cabana and was disqualified, retaining the title. That's the only time. Every other time, the champ, just like Thunder Rosa does, just like all the other representatives of the NWA, they get in there and they represent the company with grace and dignity. And the champ wins. Maybe you don't like him. Maybe you don't like his tactics against Tim Storm and that wake-up call that they sent him, but he wins clean. He wins like a prize fighter. That's all I had to say about that.
Well, let's hear what you have to say about this. This keeps coming up in the chat, but the situation with the women's championship in NWA, what's on your mind in regards to that? As far as, listen, I mean, I've been, I think, as critical as anybody on this show even before about, well, look, like Serena Deeb won the title from Thunder Rosa. Thunder Rosa seems to appear on AEW television more than Serena Deeb. And it's a weird scenario, admittedly. I don't understand what's exactly there. Serena Deeb has not defended. I mean, she has defended the title. But Thunder Rosa was there constantly with the title ready to defend it. And we haven't gotten to see. Now, I know that Thunder Rosa was attempting to get a rematch with Serena Deeb, it seemed like, and she was interrupted by Britt Baker. But that's like a main AEW storyline is Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa, and Serena Deeb appears in like a tag team match, like that kind of thing. What's going on with Serena Deeb and that NWA Women's Championship? What do you think should be happening here? Will, you've been so quiet. I'm going to throw to you first.
Well, my God, nobody can get in a word with you two guys tonight. Very, very worked up, hyped up. But yeah, I mean, transitioning to the women's title, it's tough, man, because it's transitioned basically onto another promotion show with somebody who is under contract, exclusively with another promotion, which is something we all support. We've been very vocal about the fact that we support it. My criticism of that is going to be there. I don't know of a match that's coming up. I don't know the next defense. I don't know, what the story is going on with that. And now, admittedly, I haven't watched every second of AEW Dynamite and Dark, in the past month or so. But if we're leveraging criticisms, I'd like to see it in a little more of a spotlight and some more title matches there. But I mean, Serena Deeb's a worthy champ, and I would like to see the Thunder Rosa rematch. But I will say, just removing the title from the equation, I am very invested in Thunder Rosa versus Britt Baker. This feud is heating up, and cannot wait to see that pay off. But yeah, I mean, it's a weird time. It's interesting because it's a weird time, but in like a good way, but I still have some like things I'd like to see. Does that make sense? Like, and this is just me being critical without being a total D-bag. Like, I want to see more of that women's title. I want to see Serena Deeb in more of a position where she's spotlighted a little more, but that's because I'm an NWA fan. And so, I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts?
I mean, yeah, obviously I want to see the title defended. That's the Burke. That's the when Thunder Rosa was defending that championship, man, it was like the baddest thing going, man. And she is the baddest thing going. So I have nothing ill to say about Serena Deeb. I have all the respect in the world for her. And again, she's one of those ones, like we've said a couple of times, there's nothing in the world like the respect of your peers. You look at the talent out there, they respect Serena Deeb. Thunder Rosa respects Serena Deeb. I don't know. I can't pretend to have contacts or know what's going on in negotiations, this, that, why, the belt isn't being defended. Just like I don't know why Aldis is not out there, on a daily basis in situations where you could be, or I don't know those things.
Well, Rob, let's be honest real quick. I mean, let's be straight up. I mean, we know that there are places that would use that women's title. Oh. Mission Pro Wrestling still exists. Mission Pro Wrestling is out there right now, ready every single day. They were trying to put that NWA Women's Championship, the Burke, at the top of the card every single time they had an opportunity. So it's not as though, if we're being authentic with the people, we know there's opportunity, right?
Yeah. And right. I mean, you think, look, that Mission Pro tournament. Thunder Rosa was not entered into the tournament because she held the Burke. She held the greatest title of them all, and the Mission Pro was going to be for the other talent in the company. In that first Mission Pro show, she defended the belt in a legendary match against Lindsay Snow. Great match. I got to see the belt, man. I was 3 feet from it. I seen it with my eyes. Beautiful championship. I don't know why, though. I mean, if the question is what do I feel about it, I don't like the fact that it's not being defended. I don't think there's anything wrong with Serena Deeb. I think she could be an able champion. I'd like to see her defend it. But if I were to sit here and say, oh, Serena Deeb's not a legit champion because she's not defending it, well, I just spent an hour saying the exact opposite about Nick Aldis. I don't know what goes on in the booking. I don't know. She is the champion. She's the lineal champion. She holds the most prestigious belt in the world right now. I felt like the reign of Thunder Rosa was one for the ages. It was a great reign. I loved it. And, oh my gosh, now I've got to buy tickets to Omaha, Nebraska. Jeez. Oh, Lord. Just seen that come up. Anyway, I don't know. I don't know why. That's not for me to know. There's a veil, and we have relationships with some of these guys that we build, and I think it's a relationship that's built upon, hey, we respect the company, what you do, and we're trying to get the word out. But there still should be a veil between us and them. I mean, there still should be a distance that should be kept, and I think even with hanging out with Brian Rosad in the shed at Mission Pro, there's still a veil there where, it's not like we're going fishing together. We're not going to the bar together. I don't know the inside scoop. I'm a fan, and I'm just telling you that Nick Aldis is the legit champ. Right now, Serena Deeb is a legit champ. I was thankful for the reign of Thunder Rosa. I thought she did a phenomenal job. She is a fighting champion. I hope she gets it back. Nothing against Serena Deeb, but my girl is Thunder Rosa. And there's something about her fighting. And I like the story with her and Britt Baker. I think that's going to be exciting. But I would love it if the stakes were a little higher. If Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa are wrestling for the belt. You know what I mean? That doesn't take anything away from what Thunder Rosa's doing at all.
But if Serena Deeb's not going to do anything with it, I mean, there's nothing wrong with saying that. Look, I love Serena Deeb. I think Serena Deeb is one of the great women's wrestlers right now. So again, not trying to cut in here and be a douche, but well, two things. Nick, if you're listening to this right now in Omaha, if you have any information about a meet and greet, we would be grateful to have that, or if you know anything about it, because there is a gentleman that you made a video for that just defeated stage 4 cancer, and he is grateful to you and he would love to meet you. And this is a weird place to call you out on that, so I apologize for that, but it's going on in the chat, so I just wanted to mention it. He would probably be in Omaha to see you there. So if the show can set that up, that would be fantastic. But also, I just maybe the NWA World's Heavyweight Champion or Women's Championship is only competed for by the a very particular group of women, headstrong, powerful women. Maybe that's the case. And so everybody's just picking their shots. I don't know. I saw a news item today I was going to bring up later where Priscilla Kelly talked to the Observer and said, if you don't know, Priscilla Kelly is the ex-wife of Darby Allin. And she was offered a spot in AEW. And it was to come in as Allen's wife. And she shot it down, because she felt like if she came in like that, she'd forever be cast as Darby Allin's wife. And she did not want that. She wants to come in on her own merit and that sort of thing. So I'm just like, well, maybe the NWA's Women's Championship is just battled for by the creme de la creme of women's wrestling. But anyway, Rob, I interrupted you for no reason.
No, you're right. And that's the point. I mean, I don't know how much more I can elaborate on this. We drew comparisons between Thunder Rosa's reign and the Aldis Crusade. The Destruction Tour was phenomenal. It was epic. Her reign was one of the most, and I hate, women's wrestling is in such a good position now, and it's just at the right time for someone like Thunder Rosa to shine. I hate to compare Thunder Rosa to other ages, because I think in prior ages, women's wrestling was a carnival attraction. It wasn't treated with the same level of respect. So even if you go back to like the Mildred Burke days, I'm reading a biography of Mildred Burke right now, and one of the themes that comes across is the amount of exploitation that her manager constantly had. And then of course we saw the Dark Side of the Ring episode on Moolah, and I'm not here to trash anybody. You're certainly not Moolah, but there was always a stigma about women's wrestling that does not exist today in the same way. And Thunder Rosa's reign was as credible and as awesome as the Aldis Crusade was. It was the Burke's version of the Aldis Crusade. I don't know if we'll ever get that again. I hope we do. I hope that Serena Deeb has a fantastic reign. I really want that belt to be back around the waist of Thunder Rosa, but I'm not going to boo Serena Deeb or attack her or criticize her because of things that I haven't seen yet. Obviously, I want to see wrestling. That's what I want to see. I want to see him fight. I don't know. I'm not a carny. I'm not a promoter. I'm just a fan. I'm just a simple Mark, bro. Who appreciates this promotion, and I don't have any answers. Serena Deeb is an AEW signed talent. She currently holds the Burke. We need to see the Burke defended more. We need to see the 10 pounds of gold defended more. But to the extent that they're doing what they're doing, they're fulfilling their bookings with grace and with ability. And it was. I don't know. I'm just kind of filibustering here. I don't have any specific answers on just.
Well, it's a weird scenario. Like, I mean, it's that we obviously have a good relationship with a lot of the people, and I think that our standards initially revolve around the talent. Like, we care about the people involved in professional wrestling. We care about the wrestlers. That's our first and foremost. That's why we spent a lot of time earlier in the show talking about Danny Hodge, Brodie Lee, Kevin Green. Like, the people, we want to pay homage to those people that put themselves in the ring and put their bodies on the line and just to entertain you all right now. I mean, that's one of the big things. We love, for instance, Nick Aldis. That does not look, we look at Nick Aldis as the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship. But if you think that if someday Nick Aldis shows his face on WWE television, we're just going to not care about Nick Aldis, it's too late for that. We already do. It's just that we're going to believe in Nick Aldis. Like, it's that thing. We care about Thunder Rosa. We wish her the best in whatever she has to do in her career. The wrestling business, I mean, just a little in the little bit of time that I wouldn't say that I'm like in it or involved, but just the little bit that I've been able to dip my toe into it, I can tell you that the wrestling business is weird, and you never know. Like, you never know what's going to change day to day. People come, people go, people show up elsewhere. Those folks are busting their ass because it's what they love, but they're having to go to the place that makes the most sense in their lives. I guess I'm saying all that to say that what Rob's implying here is that, like, we also do care about the NWA, obviously, a lot, and we care about the Burke. We care about that championship. We're not going to sit here and crap on Serena Deeb if that's what you want, because she hasn't had a title defense in a little while, because we've just been defending Nick Aldis. I mean, things are what they are. We want Serena Deeb to defend the women's championship. Sure, it was a weird situation that she won it from Thunder Rosa. It blew our minds when it happened. We'd love to see more follow-up on that. Perhaps better than what they even got already. And we'd love to see the NWA Women's Championship elevated to the level of the AEW Women's Championship. We want to see those belts treated equally. But we're not going to talk trash about Serena. We're not going to talk trash about Thunder Rosa. We're not going to, I mean, that's just ain't our style, right?
Nah, man. It ain't our style. I mean, it is what it is, man. Serena Deeb didn't create COVID-19. I guarantee you, if we were having power and had Serena won the championship, she would be defending the title on power. You know, she didn't create the scenario. You can't fault her. Serena Deeb beat the hottest woman in the world. She beat Thunder Rosa twice. Okay, so she earned that.
First of all, you need to tone that back a little bit, because I think her husband's in the chat, so you need to.
He'll be the first to tell you, man. The Rosas think the world of Serena Deeb. It's not her. She didn't create the scenario.
I'm just talking about you calling her the hottest woman in the world. I would say that no, 100%. Like, Serena Deeb, when she was like booked in the match, I mean, the Rosas were in the chat room on this show telling a story about how they drove like 3 hours just to watch Serena Deeb wrestle. So there's a ton of respect that goes on there. Front Row dropping in the chat that Serena Deeb's the top level talent, and I feel only top talents should hold those NWA titles. I'd love to see her defend against other people at her level. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I think we're all kind of on board. J-Cal dropped something in our Discord, which if you're not a part of, you definitely should be. The other day about what was it? He was talking about anyway, I just lost my train of thought. There it is. That's the too many toasts to people. I think I just killed the momentum. Look at that. I got lost in Brian Rosen saying Serena's is great, but the booker sucks though. And so I got lost for a second there, but anyway, we were having a whole conversation about the championships and the women that are involved in this, and it I don't know, man. I wish that the NWA Women's Championship was being defended more often. I wish I could tell you what was going on with the interaction between the two promotions right now. I don't know. I don't know what's happening there, but for sure.
The problem is we got spoiled. The problem is we got spoiled with Thunder Rosa. And so we got to remember that. I mean, she was working her ass off defending that title, making it as visible as possible and succeeding doing so. And so now that momentum has slowed down, we see it almost as a bad thing, but it's really not. It's kind of on par with all the other titles at this point. So
thank you for jumping in there, Will, because the original thought I had, it just came back to me as you were saying that, but it was that we were having a discussion on, he was almost saying the NWA should completely reset, almost as though he's come around to the thing we've been talking about forever, but just that we've been talking about the NWA could get by just being a promotion of titles, like the champions that are involved there. Like, I was saying, like he was almost being critical, like saying the NWA should do this. And I'm like, dude, it feels like the NWA already did do this. Like it's like you've got your tag team champions, your national champion, your TV champion, your world champion. And as of right now, that kind of feels like who the NWA has. It's like, then you're going to try to rebuild when you're ready to do something again. And if people that you had before are available, they'll be available and you work it out. But it's interesting. Like I hope that they've worked out a deal where like a Serena Deeb can be able to fill that role and be there. If the rumors are true from an interview that she herself did, where it's leaked out that potentially there's tapings in January or something, then I hope that she's there and I hope she's available and ready to be a part of that roster just as much as Thunder Rosa was. So we'll see. All right. Well, that's all we got today, folks. Just kidding. Let's throw a Rich in the place. Let's get something completely out of left field. Will, this will get you back involved a bunch, I think. So I did jot down a bit of news. Sting was on the AEW Unrestricted podcast this past week, and he said he pushed hard to do a cinematic match with The Undertaker, but WWE was never interested. Vince never believed that Sting well, the Observer jumped in here. This is where I originally got this. He said Vince never believed in the match, and Sting wasn't his creation or his guy. Unlike Bill Goldberg, who had different advocates over the years, like Dwayne Johnson and later Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman, Sting never had a powerful person pushing for him. Vince was never interested until his deal with the video game led to so many people talking about Sting coming to WWE that they decided to bring him in. But Vince only saw him as the last vestige of doing the WWE versus WCW war. And in his last match in WWE, John Cena laid Rollins out dead for him to beat to win the title. And he still lost. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, that match. Anyway. Sting said on the show that he was absolutely interested in doing cinematic matches. He also said he wanted to go out on top as opposed to the way he went out a few years ago. He said in the short time he's been in the promotion, he's seen some of the most incredible athletic matches he's ever seen in his life. He's had a very different concept of style changes than a lot of wrestlers in his age group. He said, quote, "When I first started, I didn't want to do and be like the generation before me. I wanted to be different, and I was. And these guys I'm watching now, they're doing the same thing. They're different. They've changed the psychology, how to tell a story, and they're good. They're so innovative." And so that was just an interesting part. Sting telling a story there, basically, I think there's a discussion to have about wrestling changes. So this goes back to your Jim Cornettes and those kind of folks who's like relied on like a certain psychology and that sort of thing. They're not grasping the Young Bucks, for instance. But I feel like every interview we see, anybody that talks about the Young Bucks says that they've had their best matches with the Young Bucks. You know, just like the way that people would always talk about Ric Flair So what does that mean? Like, and it's Sting saying he's, I saw an interview with X-Pac not too long ago where he talked about being in the ring early on. I think he was in AWA, and it was like he talked about Nick Bockwinkel giving him advice, like an older Nick Bockwinkel telling him, he's like, all right, this is what I want to do. And
How did Nick Bockwinkel sound when he was giving him advice, Gary?
I don't, I couldn't do it justice.
Well, I do declare.
Well, son, what you got to do? I say,
you got to run into the ropes, and you got to throw them to the corner, and you got to Irish whip them.
Don't do all of them flippy floppy shenanigans, boy. You gotta. You're doing a lot of tipsy-turvy kerfluffleness. What you got to do, you got to. And Sean Waltman is saying, like, I heard him, and I was like, I'm still going to do my shit. And he said that later on in life, he saw himself having these matches with these kids. And he's like, they're like, let's do this and this. And he's like, all right, hold up. Like, look, you don't have to do all of that. Let's do this. And he's like, and then I realized, they're still going to do that. They're still going to do it. And I'm in that role. And anyway, so it sounds like even Sting's being in that position. He's just like, I wanted to buck the system when I was first coming in. And he's like, now I have to realize that these kids are bucking the whole thing, doing their own thing. I say bucking, like young bucking.
That's their name.
Oh. Anyway, Rob, I want your thoughts.
Man, let's go to Will first. I'm still gathering my thoughts.
Well, first of all, Sting and The Undertaker in a cinematic match, I respect all. I respect all of the opinions about cinematic matches. Listen, they're not my favorite either, but the Boneyard match and the outcome of that and how it made, not necessarily the outcome, because AJ Styles died and then was at Raw like a week later. But so there was some continuity breakdown there in the storyline. But in terms of how it was executed and how, for me, my opinion, how it was to watch, I enjoyed it. It was enjoyable for me. Since then, there's been a lot of cinematic matches that I would not say that about. So it's not a blanket statement of I love cinematic matches or I hate them. I think that one was done really well. I think the idea, there's certain characters, there's certain talents that would lend themselves to a more cinematic style match. In my opinion, The Undertaker and Sting are two perfect, ideal characters to have a match in that kind of scenario, a cinematic style match. So that is a huge missed opportunity, in my opinion. I think it would, I get where Vince is coming from, and I'm not here to drag Vince through the mud or anything like that, but he's got the reputation of, if it wasn't his creation, he's not going to put it over. And the only reason he's put over guys like Goldberg and stuff like that is because they didn't go work for TNA for years and years, and like Sting did, and stuff like that. So it is what it is, but man, that's just a huge missed opportunity, in my opinion. Imagine that match at WrestleMania, or any time really. But yeah, it's been really interesting to see Sting come in and make, his debut into AEW. There's still questions swirling around what he's going to do, what he's going to be. And, obviously he's going to make his presence felt in kind of a mentor type relationship, as we're talking about. But it's going to be interesting to see what role he plays actually directly in storylines and things like that. You talk about Darby Allin, and it's super interesting. There's a lot of similarities between those characters, but I still have the question of like, well, where does that go? And how does that play out? So it's cool, man. I'm a huge Sting fan. And in my opinion, still is a lot of question marks about what his role is going to be. We talk about a multi-year deal. What does that look like with AEW? I'm glad he's on TV. I'm glad he's part of wrestling. I think he should be. I think he deserves it. And I think he deserves to be a part of a promotion like AEW that's going to respect the history and that kind of thing, instead of, a place that's going to look at him as someone else's talent that they're just going to use for a video game. So yeah, it's cool stuff. And I haven't actually gotten around to listening to that interview from the AEW podcast. So I'm looking forward to listening to that at some point this week, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what you said, I would echo. I mean, I guess the main thing is the world is big enough for it. It's not my cup of tea. I see Front Row saying that it's a fun change of pace and it can be entertaining. I think that the things that strike against us, the chords, are the same thing that we feel, the same thing that like James Lawrence feels, that they detract from what is otherwise, supposed to be a presumed legit sport. So, but again, the world's big enough. I mean, it's not just about me. I have a style that I like. I'm drawn to particular brands because of that. But I think even most brands, I'd say that even like WWE and AEW, to the extent that they do them, it's not like that they completely expunge prize fight wrestling from their product. I mean, we watched TLC the other night, and for the most part, it was a credible card. It was a good event until the end. And there may be some people that liked how it ended. I didn't particularly care for it. I thought it was a little tasteless, but I just feel like I'm going to push the things that I like, and if I don't like it, I can just ignore it, I suppose.
Well, it's just interesting to me with AEW in the respect of Sting has shown up there now. Arn Anderson's over there. Tully Blanchard's over there. Taz is over there. There's there are people that have history in the business. Even if you wanted to knock Taz, I mean, I don't know how you could knock him as a legendary figure, considering that was even in the 90s. And he's still relevant. But even if you want to go back into that glory days of NWA time period that we like to talk about, Arn and Tully are over there. Bret Hart's appeared on the show. Like it's and now Sting is showcasing over there. It's just interesting to see like all of these guys that are the guys that we talk about respecting, and from that period of time that we love, they're utilized in I think arguably a way better way on AEW than they are anywhere else. I mean, I see James Lawrence talking about how many managers does AEW need. Cody has like 15. I don't know what that means. I mean, I think you're talking about the Nightmare family that sometimes like escorts him or something. But I think even the last time they showed up was because Brodie Lee had like the Dark Order or something like that. So it made sense. But anyway, I guess what I'm saying is this is cool to see the legends get respect over there. And so even like the day that Sting walked out, I was like, immediately I felt more relieved that he was there. Like, this place will care more about who Sting is than anybody else will. And I don't know. I don't know if it's lip service that these people say this kind of stuff, but you hear Arn and Tully and Sting, all of these people talk about AEW, like realizing this is the next generation. This is what it's about and that sort of thing. But then you hear guys like Jim Cornette, for instance, who can't wrap their brain around this. This is garbage wrestling, to them. And so,
I mean, Jim Cornette, God love him. I love Jim Cornette. He's outspoken and all that. But I think to your point, Gary, I think something has to be said for the fact that there's a deliberate homage being paid to the heroes of the past, Sting, Tully Blanchard, Arn Anderson, and their roles now being to mentor and coach and guide this up and coming talent, even if it's in something cinematic. And Sting is no stranger to cinematic episodes and all that, but I think it's an obvious attempt. It's at least an effort. And you may not, and I know James Lawrence is going to have an opinion on this, and that's fine, but it's an obvious effort to draw the brand into the past and to root it in tradition. It's an obvious effort, much like All In was an effort. We talk about the NWA's connection with the AEW. All In was the launching point, so to say. It wasn't formally there yet, but I mean, the Aldis Cody match was the launching pad for this promotion to become what it is now. And so it's, I'm excited to see Sting there. I don't want to see Sting, he's obviously not going to be able to do what he could do back in 1990 or those years before. I don't know that we won't see him in any matches. Obviously he might get physically involved. He's got the bat and this and that, but if for anything else, just seeing them there to me is a nod to the past. And the AEW is good about doing that. They're really good. Even like with Kenny Omega's really fantastic entrances now, the North Carolina reference as a nod to Michael Jordan and the UNC Tar Heels, man. I mean, I think that's cool. And it's just this little winks here and there that, hey, we know where we came from. We know what the roots are. We respect tradition. Here's the proof. We've got Sting here. We've got Double A. We've got, Tully Blanchard. And we've got Kenny Omega, who comes from Seattle, Washington, which is only 1,400 miles from North Carolina. You know what I mean?
It's more than 1,400 miles, I bet. I don't know.
I'm just guesstimating. I'm just.
But to throw it in there, I mean, you got like guys like Dean Malenko in the back as an agent, and like a bunch of guys like that, and just, I mean, it's just interesting that these are people that obviously they saw what the WWE was doing as far as professional wrestling, and with All In, they proved there was an audience for something else that launched AEW. But maybe it's not as exactly like everybody else thinks that they were like, oh, it was a proof of concept for AEW, and it launched off that, and that's true. And maybe they screwed over Ring of Honor in that process, but also Ring of Honor is doing some of their best stuff I've ever seen them do right now. And so there's a new uprising. It feels like there's something fresh. It feels like it's cooking in the wrestling business. I'm kind of excited about wrestling more so than I have been in a long time. I latched onto the NWA with This Is the NWA podcast because it was just like new. And I'm like, oh, here's Billy Corgan doing a thing. I'm going to get in on this. I want to care about wrestling again. Right before that, I'd kind of dropped off. And so I wanted to jump in. And I feel like since that time I jumped in on it, leading into All In, and since the landscape of wrestling has completely changed. And these young guys, maybe you don't get them completely. Maybe you don't understand everything they're doing. Maybe you don't see why Sting and Darby Allin could possibly connect or whatever. But, who is Orange Cassidy? Who are the Young Bucks? Who is, I don't know, any of them. But it just feels like there's a place for it now. I don't know. Like you said, I mean, there's different stuff for everybody. Look, dude, the name that keeps coming back to me right now is Josh Woods. Like, I love Josh Woods in Ring of Honor. Like, I think that guy's fantastic. I think he's one of the most brilliant talents. You want to see a guy like over at WWE, you want to see a guy like Chad Gable bust out so he can come wrestle some of these people. And it's just, I don't know, it just feels, I feel good about the wrestling landscape right now. And I know that folks like want to hate on AEW and that sort of thing, but I feel like that kind of helped spark the ability for all these other things to exist. Maybe it was a necessary thing. Craig asks, of course, Hammerstone!
Damn
Hammerstone. I do love some Hammerstone. Hammerstone is like the most traditionally back to the 80s WWE guy that we could possibly be talking about. And I still love the hell out of some Alexander Hammerstone.
He's like, and in other news, Hammerstone exists.
Oh man, do you love that guy? I got some stuff about MLW eventually when we get to it, but we've been like toasted the folks we've lost this week, and just Gary already had too much whiskey, I guess. Although I did see Foghorn Gary greater than Whiskey Gary earlier in the chat.
I think they might be one and the same.
It's possible.
I say they might be.
Well, I say, son. Oh, man. Yeah, I've never actually had a man crush. I see you saying that, Woodland Goblin, but that just feels insecure. I think you just need to open yourself up. Who among us hasn't had a man crush? Like you've seen guys that you've been like, that's a good looking dude. Like that dude is just a stud, right, Rob? I know you've seen him.
Sean Connery, man. Sean Connery is my all-time man crush, man. That joke right there is like the great Sean.
Knew it can bring it out. This show's taking a turn, baby.
I mean, that's not a bad one, but it's just out of left field. Like it's legit, but I just didn't expect like
he is the
everyone that I knew in my life up until like recently. Sean Connery was like the dude, you know, as far as my like mom and my grandparents and stuff. But that's Rob.
Well, we love
it's your grandparents.
Yeah, right. We love baseball. We love James Bond movies, man. I love Hunt for Red October. I just think Sean Connery, you know, we lost him this year too. And you know, that's him, man. That's you want to nail me down. If I had to pick just one, it'd be him.
Will, who's your man crush? Come on.
Gosh, man. I don't know, dude. That's a tough one. I'm not gonna, you know, stick my stake in the ground and say I've never had one. I just maybe it wasn't prevalent. I mean,
Sting?
Sting would be close, man. I mean, I wouldn't call it a crush. I just, you know, I wanted to be him. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I feel like that's kind of what like a man crush is. Like you're kind of like, I know everything that guy's got is like the best stuff a guy can have. Like I wish I had all of that. Like it just, you know, that's kind of how I view it.
Zach Galifianakis, maybe.
Zach Galifianakis, sure. Sure, I can see it. Listen, I'm not telling you like I mean nobody here's telling you you gotta have sex with the guy you pick. I mean, I'm just telling you, like you can have a man crush. Like you're just like, man, that's a good looking dude. I got plenty. I got like obviously Hammerstone. Like if I could be like that buff. Yeah, I mean Dean Winchester from Supernatural. Like that guy's just cool. Like he's just I don't know. Who else? There's got to be another one somewhere in there.
Well, now I'm thinking about TV. There's probably TV movie.
Yeah, like David Hasselhoff.
Dude from what's his name? Bana. Eric Bana, man. I thought that and that's
see, there you go. It's coming out now. Eric Bana. Like, let's talk about some draws. Like,
hey, and The Last Survivor, I think is the movie about the engagement there in Afghanistan. He plays like the CEO. I was like, that's my dude right there.
Lone Survivor.
Lone Survivor, yeah, Lone Survivor. So that's Joker. I've even gotten Eric Bana comparisons before.
Did you see oh weird. I guess I could kind of see that now that you say that.
Yeah.
Like Eric Banana. It's like Rob's like if you ordered him off a Wish.
Did you see Munich? Have you seen Munich, Rob? God, Eric Bana is the main dude in that. That's like a brilliant movie. That's so good. James Lawrence dropping in with 12th Doctor Peter Capaldi. That is so weird, James Lawrence, but I love it. That's good for you. He's awesome. I would have called David Tennant. Like I think David Tennant
so is this Doctor. What we're doing now, man? We just talking about all the guys we have crushes
on? Podcast, so our audience is just dropping. It's like they just talking man crushes. James Lawrence says Spike from Buffy. Front row says I met Finn Balor and my knees are still weak. How do you, dude? Finn Balor is put together, right? Like, how can you deny that? Like, he's just got like 12-pack abs, and just like he is ripped head to toe. This podcast is a different thing now.
Hey, we got to admit, man. Let's just go ahead and address the elephant in the room here. Hours before we walked into that arena in Grimsley, Tennessee, I'm probably the only one of the bearded trio that had to go get his nails did. Have a face.
I was about to say, ain't nobody listening to this that don't think Rob Stinson's man crushes Nick Aldis. We know. This is happening.
That's funny.
Rock says 70 side he's in. He says we're all woke. Like,
listen, we weren't going to put this out there, and it was Aldis that put it out there, not us. We weren't going to. We got to spend some time with the champ. Just hanging out a little bit, just talking business, as it were. And Aldis told you that we weren't going to. We left when he left. We're like, hey, we ain't saying nothing about this. This is between us. And there are things about that we're not going to discuss. But I remember when Nick Aldis complained that I didn't bring Diet Coke. Boy, I was like crushed for like 3 days. I was like, oh man, I was like,
he punished himself by drinking an entire case of Diet Coke in one sitting. That was your punishment.
I was like, what? You're right. Anyway.
Oh, Jason Peace going with Matt Smith as his favorite doctor. Hey, man, I love some Matt Smith stories too, but David Tennant wins every time. You guys watch Doctor Who? Will don't even watch Star Wars, so I don't expect him. Rob, you love Doctor Who. Like, that's right up your alley. That's some, like, intelligent stuff.
Say again now. I didn't hear what you just said. You broke out.
No, I was just saying you'd like Doctor Who. I don't feel like you've ever watched Doctor Who.
My son's big into Doctor Who.
Doctor Who's so good.
No, yeah, he loves that junk, man.
But James Lawrence is into Grumpy 12. Yeah, I hear you. All right. Well, more power to you. Did you ever see that clip of him in that movie where he's like saying the F word every like 2 seconds, but in the most clever ways? It's very funny. Anyway, what were you going to say, Rob? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to ruin you. Let's talk about man crushes. That's this week on After Dark is for Rosette. Man crushes. We should do that one day. We should do that. It should be like one episode where we just talk about who we think are the hottest WWE
superstars. We didn't say hottest. We just said, man, who's our dude we identify with, man? Who do we identify with? I ain't saying nobody. I'm saying them about hottest.
Who is Jodie Whittaker? William Feaster is Jodie Whittaker.
Have to look it up.
That's what I'm doing, man.
You're muted.
Am I muted now?
No, you're good now.
No, I was just saying Jodie Whittaker, she's the first female doctor, so that makes perfect sense. All right, we're off the rails. Let's go back into some other news. Oh, man.
We're talking about man crushes.
Yeah, we can still talk about man crushes, but let's also talk about how Tom Lawler beat Loki in 25 minutes on the December 23rd episode of MLW Fusion to win the Opera Cup. Did you guys watch that match? Did you guys get a chance to see it?
I did not, but I saw a few clips from it. Looked like it was a good bout, and I like the outcome personally. So
it is worth your time to see it, not to be like a complete bummer, like to tell you the finish, but it did it in such a way. It was pretty clever. And I don't know, maybe you guys have seen something, Rob, in your history, you've probably seen something like this, but Loki goes for like the like knee in the corner, but like something happens and he like hits himself in the head too, and it like knocks him, like it knocks Lawler out, but Lawler falls on top of him that like bends his legs back as he falls onto him, and he gets the 1, 2, 3, like the pinfall. Like Loki can't kick out of the pinfall. That like Lawler's weight is like just dead weight, like laying over his legs, like bending him back down for the pinfall, and he gets the 1, 2, 3. It's pretty cool. But they went like 25 minutes. It was a fantastic submission match. Let's see here. So on 1/6, the reason I'm bringing this up, January 6th, they're doing a show called Wrestling Coliseum, and it's their first pay-per-view they're going to do of 2021, and they're doing it for free on YouTube. We should definitely cover that. But it'll just be like a 1-hour show too, but it starts at 7, and it's like Myron Reed versus Leo Rush for the middleweight title. Ross and Marshall Von Erich defend the tag titles against the Dirty Blondes, and Alex Hammerstone takes on Mads Kruger for the national title, national openweight title is what he should have put here, and Simon Gotch versus Jordan Oliver. They're building, according to the Observer, they're building to that. When Lawler won, he said, "We're going to Filthy Island." That is supposedly a themed show they're going to do called Filthy Island, which is a takeoff of like UFC's Fight Island. And it's going to be like a full card that they go out to do this island off of Hawaii. And sounds pretty interesting. And Lawler is going to be kind of the Dana White figure in the middle of all of this. And I don't know how much you've seen of this, Rob, but maybe you would recognize this. The Mads Kruger gimmick is supposedly supposed to be like the spoiler. And that was apparently Court Bauer's idol. Or his idol and mentor growing up was Gary Hart. And the spoiler was like Hart's favorite protege, I guess. So like this idea is to build up to the Von Erichs versus Kruger somewhere in Dallas in September, as like to try to do a Fritz versus the spoiler thing or something like that. So I guess that relates back to history with professional wrestling. So
even the whole opera cut, I mean, they're just so good. Again, like we referred to AEW with these nods back to tradition. Those are the kinds of things that really enrich wrestling for me. These little references that for those who have ears to hear, who know the spoiler and Gary Hart and that legendary relationship, it's really really nice to see. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I just thought it was pretty neat to see that kind of stuff. But yeah, anyway, MLW is doing some good stuff over there. So you got to check it out. Will pointed this out on the bottom here. If you want to check it out, Kings of the Coliseum, 7 p.m., January the 6th. They're on YouTube, Fubo, Pluto TV, BN Sports, whatever that is, and Design. They're on all of the things available for you to watch them. They're trying to be available.
What of
That's what they're called, right?
DAZN.
DAZN. Sorry.
That's Gary's French accent coming out.
Not DAZN, Design. It's on Design.
It's DAZN. Thank you very much. Let's go back to talking about
which one are the they're on 24/7. Like you can already watch it even before it happens.
Yeah. That's my favorite.
It's on
24/7. It's on right now.
Yeah.
Just go watch it right now.
All right. Let's see. What other news do we have here that we can throw to? There is, there's these video game shows. I just thought this was interesting. If you were wondering what WWE was doing when they were crushing everybody's Twitch channels, it's that the WWE announced they've got the Superstar Gaming series that's about to start up.
Oh boy.
And set to launch on Tuesday, December 29th at 8 p.m. It's on the free version of WWE Network and all their social platforms. They'll do like the Among Us Holiday Susfest and the Battlegrounds Holiday Throwdown. They're trying to be so cool for you guys. If you would just let them. But they're not alone, by the way, if I could just say, because Then AEW announced on Saturday that a new show under their recently announced games division is launching on Wednesday, hosted by world champion and noted gamer Kenny Omega. The show will debut after Wednesday's edition of Dynamite on their dedicated YouTube channel. Not much is known about the schedule of the show outside of Omega hosting, but they're doing their own gaming show. And there you go. Everybody's in the gaming business. So
should we do that? I guess we should do one.
Well, when those games that are coming out now, Nick Aldis is going to be in Retromania Wrestling. Maybe if we figure out how to do a Twitch channel, we can play, that game with them.
I haven't played a video game since like Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2, so I'll have to get used to it.
Rob played Pong.
Pitfall.
Sure. Okay.
Pitfall.
Yeah. Pitfall joke. I'm sorry, Rob.
Tanya and I were playing trivia last night. One of our stocking stuffers was a 1950s through 2000s trivia game, pop culture trivia.
Okay.
And there was a question about Atari and Pong, and I missed it. I was like, what? I missed it.
My beautiful wife, I will say this, in my stocking this year, she gave me so much wrestling trivia stuff that she was like, I thought you might like it for your show. And I was like, no, this is perfect. Like, we could definitely play some wrestling trivia on the show. That would be a lot of fun.
Oh, that'd be great, man.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, no, we love board games and that kind of stuff. She got me a board game this year. She got me a few, but like one was like based on Gremlins, one was based off The Shining. I didn't even know they made games off of these things. But anyway, Woodland Goblin, you stay away from my wife, Woodland Goblin. Stay away from her.
Hey, Roscoe's mentioning Among Us. That is one game that I have tried, and it would be kind of cool to. I don't know how that works. If we get like a channel, we can all play on there. That's pretty fun.
Look, man, I downloaded Among Us, and we were just talking about this on the Cinema Shock livecast the other day. And I was telling my buddy, I was like, look, I downloaded it and I tried to play it, and I had no idea what the hell was happening. The whole
you gotta play with friends. You got to play with friends.
I had no idea. It was like everybody was running around. I was like, the only interaction I had with other people was because I suspected like red. And then it all of a sudden brought us to a room and they were like, why red? Why red? Why? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. And then,
it's red. Red is bad, obviously. It's always red.
Thanks, man.
And I was ejected into space. And then I realized I'm old. I'm just too old.
You are, man. Just let me throw some knowledge on you. The human brain has something called it's not a physical thing, like you can't locate it. It's a concept, but
the human brain.
No, the language
you can never locate a brain. It's like where could it be?
Right. The language acquisition device is that facet of the brain that permits young kids to acquire language. And we were talking with Piper today about how Petra, my youngest, my 2-year-old, is learning at a much quicker rate than we are. She's learning rules of grammar and syntax just through observation. Her brain is appropriating that in a really fascinating way through what scientists and researchers call the language acquisition device. That's just a concept. It's a phenomenon. But this phenomenon disappears at about the age of 12 years old. Somewhere between 12 and 14, it goes away. So kids, between 0 and 14, they can pick up and become fluent in most languages. We can still do that. We can still learn and acquire language, but we'll never acquire the degree of fluency that they will. They'll be fluent in Spanish or whatever. We'll be proficient, but not fluent. Well, it just so happens that technology accesses the same portion of the brain. And so kids today are learning to use these devices. This is what we call an Xbox controller. That's what scientists call it. And it's got all these features called buttons and toggles and switches and all that. Now, Piper and Petra can pick this up. You got one too, okay?
I got one. Yeah. I don't know what this
is. It similar?
I was trying to eat this earlier. I don't know what this is.
Right. There you go. Well, Piper and Petra can take these and immediately are like, we've introduced Petra to devices, tablets and phones. And she's getting to the point now where she can navigate through it really swiftly. She's learning it because we are told, and again, brain research is still out on this, but that technology accesses the same part of the brain that language does. And so kids become fluent in technology in a way that we don't. We might be really proficient at it, but kids, they start at it. It's like a second language to them. And so I'm the kind of thing that's like, I'm the kind of person that if I'm not immediately good at something, I don't like it. And so I don't have I use this just to access like Netflix and Hulu and all that. I don't play any games. For me, this is a TV controller and I still have problems with it. It's too many buttons. The Atari was just a button and a stick, and that was it. And and I still struggle with that. Landing on the
Atari 2600 over there right now.
Yeah. So anyway, that's just a little brain research for you.
Do you know about that gamer guy? Do you know about the Atari 2600? Welcome to the chat, by the way. Thanks for hanging out.
Anyway. Thanks for hanging out. This used to be a pro wrestling podcast, but now
now we talk about game psychology.
No, we should do a whole show based on wrestling video games because I could do that. I mean, everybody's going to immediately go to the THQ games from the Nintendo 64 because those were the best. Especially, you know what? I'm not even going to go down the rabbit hole. I was going to talk about WCW versus the World and how they had these Japanese wrestlers and stuff like that.
Stay tuned. We'll do an episode. We'll have a round table.
Anyway, so the game channels are coming. So get ready for that. The only other stuff I had really wait for new stuff. We're just hanging out. AEW announced on Saturday that a new show under their recently announced games division. Wait, no, we already read that one.
Yeah, I've heard that.
No, I think they licensed the name of AEW Evolution or something like that, but it's not expected to be the new show, so they don't really know what that is. And
it's the video game.
Is that the video game?
I thought they were coming out with one, right?
Yeah, they are coming out with a video game. They're definitely coming out with a video game. I never thought this would happen, but I have no more news for you guys. So this is just hangout time. So,
yay!
Whatever you guys want to talk about in the chat.
Listen, we haven't mentioned it, and I know Rock says has been chomping at the bit all night. But man, I haven't watched it in its entirety. But SmackDown Friday night, Christmas night, was apparently the greatest SmackDown ever. I mean, that cage match that started out the show, Roman Reigns and Kevin Owens. Sounds like it was strong. You had Big E becoming Intercontinental Champion. So, I mean, off the heels of TLC last week that we watched, which was all in all a good show, minus the finish. And then they come back strong on Christmas night with a by all accounts, a really strong SmackDown. Gary, did you actually get to watch that show?
No, I haven't had a chance to watch SmackDown, and for some reason, here's the thing that's happening lately with the Hulu thing and everybody else. They drag ass with getting it up the next day, and so my Monday Night Raw when I want to watch it on Tuesday, I gotta wait till after 11 a.m. And then I guess whoever wakes up at Hulu and gets into work, and they put it on Hulu, and anyway, but yeah, Front Row pointing out SmackDown was excellent, drew over 4 million in the first hour, 3.3 overall. So here's the deal. Here's what happened. I saw it at our Discord. Everybody was talking about the Observer and stuff with I didn't say anything about it because I'm tired, but they were like, Brian Alvarez is going to bitch about this, blah, blah. Here's the thing. I heard them talk about it on I don't mean to put these guys over like they're gods or anything, because I don't think that. I just think that they actually do try really hard. They were all talking about SmackDown would be huge this week. The Torch and the Observer both were saying SmackDown was going to be the biggest rating that we've seen in a long time. They were saying that ahead of time. And the reason is that because it was on Fox, and I think maybe Fox Sports also, and it was coming off of an NFL game on Christmas Day. So they're like, this show will be a big rating, at least for a little bit. Like it'll be, all of these people, like there'll be NFL's the biggest sport we've got. And it's going to be coming in and it's going to be the highest ratings they've ever had leading into a show ever. And, 10, 15 years. And so they were like, it's going to be big. And it looks like they were even saying, they taped it early and they were saying it looks like it's going to be like they're trying to make it even bigger. Like they're, normally they don't even care about Christmas shows, but here they are. They booked a cage match. They booked a title change. They've all of this stuff. So it was predicted that it would be a big show. And so it was the biggest show SmackDown's seen in quite a while. So a lot of people are acting like it's this huge thing. And I don't want to sound like a naysayer. I just mean like it was supposed to be a huge thing. Like it was expected to be a huge thing. The trick is supposed to be now, do they maintain anything? Did they get people that hadn't seen the show before that are watching and they think it's like really badass and they got to tune in next week? That's the trick. That's the thing.
I get where you're coming from. I just, it's good for pro wrestling. And not to, there was a lot of controversy with AEW this past week and viewers coming over from NBA and having some critical things to say. And we don't have to get into all that, but to WWE's credit, I just feel like they knocked it out of the park with, I'm coming out of NFL mindset, right? And then you're going to show me Roman Reigns. I'm in, right? You're going to show me Roman Reigns in a steel cage with Kevin Owens. Okay, I'm in. Like it's smart. It was good creative, and that's something we don't say a lot about WWE. So I wanted to be, fair and balanced in our wrestling coverage and say that, again, I didn't watch it, but just knowing what I know about the presentation and, these guys and being super familiar with the talent, you imagine coming from an NFL game and seeing a cage match with Roman Reigns and Kevin Owens that by all accounts was executed. Those guys don't execute crap. Those guys, I promise, put on a great match, even though I haven't seen it. And everyone's saying it was great. Even the finish, being a screwy finish, I guess, so to speak. But, I just think it's smart. I think they did something right, and from what I hear, the rest of the show was just as great. So, if you're gonna give it a try, it sounds like they gave it a great try. And I would hope that this could, reignite some people. Now, are they going to come back and is SmackDown this week going to knock it out of the park again? I don't know. I'd like to think that they can and will, but that's wishful thinking. I also don't want to just crap on it and say that, that was a fluke, So
no, you're right. You're 100%
hopeful
right
about it.
They did everything they could do given the opportunity they were given. I don't think anybody here could say that they would have booked anything better. They took one of the hottest angles they had with Kevin Owens and Roman Reigns, and they booked a cage match. And then they booked the Intercontinental title match with Sami Zayn and Big E and actually booked a title change. No, you're right. You're 100% right. That was they did all they could do with the opportunity they were presented. So nobody can complain about that part of it.
And let's just say this, as a fan of professional wrestling, of what I consider true, real professional wrestling, this is the first time in years that I can remember hearing about a wrestling show, a WWE show, and having it described to me through either a podcast or reading an article that summarizes it, and having the thought of like, I got to go watch that. You know what I mean? Even pay-per-views included. And so for me, that's a pretty big accomplishment from WWE. So, props to them.
Well, and Rob mentioned earlier that you had the TLC the TLC pay-per-view, and the worst match on it was the main event. Like, it was a weird main event that was going to be the controversial thing. I almost wish they would have put it in the middle of the show, because that show otherwise was pretty brilliant. Like, I mean, for all the people that think that we're just like rag on WWE, I mean, they really did. Like, TLC, I think we all thought pretty highly of it for the most part on everything except, and oddly enough, I mean, right before that, we talked about NXT, and we were pretty good on NXT. So WWE's not like ruining every opportunity. They're working. They're doing their thing. There's stuff we wish that they would get behind that they still don't, but I mean, they're all right. I don't know where Rob keeps going. He just keeps disappearing.
Who knows? Nobody knows.
Well, we got a little bit of time, guys. So if you got something you want to talk about, now's the time to bring it up, because it's getting close to 11 o'clock. Some people have to go back to work tomorrow. Losers. No, I don't have to go back to work tomorrow. Off on Mondays. Hey, Rob, welcome back. You're right. Roman is doing the best work of his career. Dude is on another level. No, Roman's absolutely one of the best parts of WWE right now. He is. I can't say enough good things about Roman Reigns. Rob, what's going on with you over there, bro?
Oh, no. My wife has been working on a jigsaw puzzle for hours, and she just finished it, so I had to go and look at it real quick. Pretty good. It's a big puzzle, man. It's like dozens and dozens of pieces, man. Little pieces.
It's weird. He gave it to her for Christmas, and it's like a nude of him.
Well, that we'll save that for after dark.
Roscoe wants us to acknowledge the return of the War Kings. 2021 will be the year of the War Kings. Crimson and Jack Sater coming back. Yeah, I hope so. And I hope they come back to NWA. Gary, what is your favorite Doctor episode ever? Bro.
Like Doogie
Howser. No. I think one of the best episodes is Blink. I think that features so little of the Doctor. I love stuff with Captain Jack. I love stuff with I don't know. There's a Christmas episode in there. The one was like Ebenezer Scrooge. That's one of my favorites too. It makes me happy. Anyway, I was telling my wife this past Christmas we should go back and just at least get all the Doctor episodes with Christmas specials, all the Doctor Who Christmas specials, so we could watch them all on Christmas. And she was in. Anyway, my wife's hard to convince on sci-fi stuff, by the way, but she loves Doctor Who. So anyway, all right.
Well, your wife got like a Star Wars thing for Christmas? Doesn't like sci-fi?
Well, it's interesting you say that, because she doesn't care that much about Star Wars in general, but The Mandalorian hooked her. And so that's interesting. The Mandalorian, I described to multiple people over the holidays as a Western set in the Star Wars universe.
I'm gonna tell you right now, man. If you have not seen The Mandalorian, can we put the putting it over thing on real quick, Gary?
Oh, I can do it, dude.
Yeah.
Dude. Hold on 1 second here. Let's go.
Oh, I can't say. The Mandalorian, man. First of all, I was going to say that Front Row pointed out that Sasha Banks makes a very important appearance. She has an important role and does a fantastic job. If you have not seen The Mandalorian seasons 1 or seasons 2, I'm going to tell you right now, you must watch it. Give it some time. I think it starts off a little slow, but when you get to episode 8 of season 2, we were just emotional wrecks, bro. Emotional wrecks in this. It was like all the experiences of growing up with Star Wars as a child, seeing Return of the Jedi and the theater, all that stuff just came full circle in an instant. And we were just like, I was floored by it. Still am.
Mandalorian is so good. I would almost say, like, I don't even know how much you need to know about regular Star Wars. As long as you know what a Jedi is and the Empire is, then you're probably good to go on the Mandalorian. It's anyway, solid stuff. Oh, everybody's leaving us. It's time to wrap it up, guys. Do you have anything else you want to talk about before we wrap this deal up? Sounds like a no. All right.
I think we covered it. It's been Christmas week. We've all had our attention diverted, so it's
front row pointing out Sasha's important scene in the finale. It's now canon. Happy for her. Yeah, Sasha Banks is officially in Star Wars canon. She's likely to show back up. It's good to see.
Not only is Sasha Banks like one of the most important women's wrestlers out there, like her place in cultural history is sealed forever. I mean, it already was, but now if you make it into Star Wars, that's a big deal. That's big time.
Yeah, and we're gonna see more of her. Yeah, you got to start. We'll do a whole other podcast.
I'm not watching it. Like, I need to get like in the movie.
Oh,
get into it.
I was saying we could do a spin-off show where we just all like live watch the Star Wars movies with Will.
If you are gonna start, Will, I recommend you start with The Fellowship of the Rings. That's the best Star Wars book to start off. And go into The Half-Blooded Prince, and then no, I'm kidding. Obviously, for those who don't know, those aren't really Star Wars books.
No.
Jaws 4 is the best Star Wars movie. Anyway, all right. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. There's been so many of you. I see you dropping off now, but I just want to say before you all go away, make sure you hit subscribe if you haven't already. If you were watching the show and you didn't chat in the chat room, make sure you go to youtube.com/TIPW show and hit subscribe because it helps us. It helps us get in front of more people. We're also available on all the podcast networks, wherever they are. And you see all of our names here. This is where we're at on social media. At Hey, it's Will. At This is Dr. Stinson. At This is Gary Horde. And at TIPW Show. That's all over the place. The Nation Show will be doing a bunch of MPW interviews in January. Looking forward to Wishes Granted in February. That's coming up. We're most certainly going to be talking about that show. We got so much wrestling goodness coming up this year in 2021, but this is not our last show of the year. We're going to be back on Wednesday. We're going to be hanging out with you right before your new year, and we're going to bring in the new year with you. So I hope you guys will be with us, hang out with us. We love you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, enjoy